Race fans, welcome to Charlotte Motor Speedway for race number 4 in the Wheelman Showdown for the ASRS series presented by Sim Speed Shop. Tonight, we are going to be obviously at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The ASRS guys are going to be putting on quite a show, one of the longest races of the season, and it's going to be something to watch. Qualifying about to roll underway right now. Track conditions on screen. I'm Andre Grambush for Throughline TV, and of course, Carlos Acosta joining me in the booth and producing. A little bit of multitasking going on. Before we get into a little bit more pre-race coverage and qualifying, let's go ahead and take a look at our point standings going into tonight's event. Right now, it's going to be Greg Evans leading the way in points, as he has for pretty much the majority of this season. He is sitting at a total of 566 points, 48 ahead of the next car back, which is Scott Eckrich, who's been on a bit of a hot streak lately, with a lot of wins, a lot of great finishes lately from Scott Eckrich. Joseph Seville behind him in third. Corey Silva is going to be P4. Brian Yazik working his way up the running order, 163 points back in 5th. Will Worsler 6th. 7th is going to be Thomas J. George. Adam Jersky in 8th. AJ Digby 9th. And in 10th, rounding it out, the top 10, Jeff Yenish.
That's right, and it's a pleasure to be back here. In 11th, currently, Nick Curling, Evan Black 12th, John Eckert in 13th, Adam Jersky in 14th, Jordan Harnish 15th, Braxton DeWeese, I apologize, is currently 16th, Jason Stewart 17th, Michael Krobach 18th, Tim Knott 19th, and the biggest mover last week, actually tied for the biggest mover last week in terms of points, is Michael Larch, who gained a whopping 14 points. That's amazing, because not only did he gain 14 points in that one race. Oh, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong whoops, I'm looking at the wrong point standings. I was giving you guys 11th through 20th on the Wheelman Showdown standings, the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. I apologize. Actually, it's Harnish 11th, Krobach 12th, Steve Yenish in 13th, Johnny Avila 14th, Jason Stewart 15th, Doug Mellons in 16th, Grant Brown 17th, Nick Curling 18th, Troy Haight 19th. Was actually Troy Haight and Johnny Avila, as well as Tim Knott, Pete Baskins, Kevin Stone, and Michael Larch, all tied for the biggest mover of the week, which is +2, and that makes more sense. Alan Young actually dropped a spot into 20th. So that number 20th is very important, because when you qualify the top 20th, that means you are locked in until you get out of the top 20th, or until the season ends, of course. But all those drivers in the top 20th are good to go. However, just because Alan Young dropped a spot and he's currently in 20th doesn't mean he's not in danger, because only 4 spots behind him, 4 positions behind him, is John Eckert. He's 21st. He moved up 1 spot. Jackson Van Volkenburg actually dropped from 20th to 22nd, so he had to qualify his way in here. Although, with the drivers we have, it looks like everybody is good to go here tonight. But being in the top 20 is very important for pretty much all of those drivers who want to continue running stress-free, especially during qualifying.
It's really crazy to me that there are 3 drivers on that 20th place bubble that are within 12 points of one another, all within striking distance, trying to get that guaranteed starting position going into the next week. So definitely going to have to keep an eye on this throughout this race on Alan Young, John Eckert, and Jackson Van Volkenburg, who are all really close in points. And honestly, Woody Mahan, not far behind either. He's sitting at about 327 points back from the leader. So he's a little bit further back. He would need some misfortune to befall the cars ahead of him, but definitely not a question. This is one of the longest, most grueling races of the season. We're going to have 200 laps of action here at Charlotte. So a lot of time for anything to happen. However, let's say we do go caution-free. The caution-free bounty is ever present in this league, and this week, the bounty is up to $80 amongst the drivers if they can manage to get through this race completely clear and green. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think it's been a while, Carlos, since that bounty has been claimed, has it not?
Yeah, it's well, the fact that it's $8 means that it's been 7 weeks of oval racing, or 7 races that hasn't gotten caution free since the last one. So obviously it's been a while. We did have a road race a couple weeks ago. That one obviously doesn't count. But for every oval race, an extra $10 gets added until there's a caution-free race. And we've come close. There's been a couple races that have been very close, and these drivers are capable of doing that every single week. it's not a question of when it'll get cleaned or if it'll get cleaned. It's a question of when it'll get cleaned, because there's been multiple caution-free races every year that we've broadcasted, and we've had one so far this season, and it's very close. It's about time we get a second one.
Absolutely. I think that first caution-free race was the first race that I filled in as a commentator this season for the ASRS League, and that race was caution-free. It was a fun show to watch, and yeah, so they definitely are capable of claiming that bounty. That's not a pipe dream by any means. It sounds crazy to think, oh, how are they going to go 200 laps without a caution? But the drivers in this league, it's just they're phenomenal at what they do, and they're here for a reason. The amount of talent to even compete in this league is pretty high. So I definitely think that these guys eventually here, if not this week, very soon will be claiming that bounty, especially as that monetary value goes up. Because I think the higher that number goes, the more careful these guys are going to drive, because they're going to want to get their hands on that money. Speaking of money, how about the money lap, Carlos? Scott Eckrich sitting on the pole, 29.797, sitting first on the grid. He's got about 100th of a second ahead of Greg Evans, our current points leader, back in second, who ran a 29.813. And Tyler Seville, 29.833 behind him, so 200ths of a second there. We got the top three separated by less than 500ths of a second, and Will Worsler not far behind with a 29.850. Rounding out your top five, Adam Dursky sitting in P5 with a 29.875. So only one driver so far to break that 29.8 barrier down into the 29.7s. It's Scott Eckrich, who, like I mentioned when we were going over the points, he's really on a bit of a hot streak here, Carlos. I mean, he's had some really great races recently, including last week's dominant performance.
It's always you got a list of drivers of who to never count out of a race, and this year was added, of course, Scott Eckrich, who was a longtime driver for ASRS and was in a brief break and then came back and now is dominating the field. But Greg Evans, somebody you always have to consider to be a race winner, that has a shot of winning every single race, as well as usually mostly the top five that you're seeing, especially in points. But I do want to point out a driver that has improved a lot compared to last year. Is that 11 of Tyler Seville? He had a streak of multiple Midwest Simulation pole qualifying awards. And if he wasn't in the first place, then he would be qualifying second or in the top five. And right now he's qualifying third. That's his third fastest lap. Because we're currently looking at the number 18 of Doug Mullins, who's at this point just running practice laps with 2 minutes to go in close qualifying. So Tyler Seville, somebody we also have to look out for. Another driver, Will Worsler. It's no secret he's kind of been struggling a little bit. Not too much, Nikki. Don't get mad at me. I'm just speaking the facts. It's not been the same year, at the same level of success that he had last season. But that doesn't mean that he's down for the count. All right, every driver has their moments, and Will Worsler at any point could start contending and winning races again. So seeing him qualifying fourth is great. If you're Will Worsler and honestly the team owner of Nikki, because we all know Nikki's the actual team owner. Adam Jersky, Beef Jersky's Cheesecake, he was on a hot streak finishing out last season, and this season starting it out, he is bad fast. He's another driver we can't count out.
Absolutely, I would have to agree with that, especially talking about Tyler Seville. I mean, last week he had a genuine shot at winning that race towards the end, and then of course some chaos sort of broke out towards the end, and the running order got shuffled up. But he was fast all night long, and it looks like he's going to bring that speed back this week. And of course, Adam Jersky and Will Worsler. One thing I noticed about Will Worsler last week was he was really trying a lot of different things. He was running different lines on the track than pretty much anybody else. He was trying to figure that car out and just find a little bit of speed wherever he could. And I like to see that. Whenever a driver is in a car, maybe they're not super comfortable with the setup, or they're not quite on pace with the leaders, I like to see that little bit of experimentation, trying to get every last little drop out of that car, because it shows that they are really trying. They are doing everything they can, and eventually it's going to pay off. And like you said, Will Worsler is struggling a little bit lately, but I think he's on the heel of a comeback, and this qualifying effort here in P4 so far is definitely alluding to that. Thomas George, right outside the top five. That's another driver who's had a lot of good runs this season, but not all of them have come to fruition. He's been involved in a few incidents that weren't really his doing. There was one race there a little while back where he was kind of struggling with the handling of the car, but uh, throughout most of the season, he's had some really solid runs, and I think eventually one of these runs is going to come to fruition. You're going to see him up front for sure. But qualifying almost wrapping up. Actually, it has wrapped up, so that is going to be the official pole sitter, Scott Eckrich, the 29.797, and pretty much all of the top 5 that we already went through, that remains the same. But just to go through the entire qualifying order, just so the fans at home know where the driver is going to be starting, we're going to go through them as quickly as we can. Scott Eckrich, Greg Evans, Tyler Seville, Will Worsler, Adam Jersky, Thomas George, Troy Haight, Jackson Van Volkenberg, Brian Yazik, Johnny Avila, Jordan Harnish, Woody Mahan, Kevin Stone, Michael Krobach, Doug Mullins, Michael Larch, Jason Stewart, Richard Fletcher, Tim Knott, Alan Young, Jeff Yenish, Corey Silva, Mark Myers, Grant Brown, John Eckert, Barron Bonner, and we're not going to forget him, Steve Yenish in the number 23 car is going to be starting at P27. So that is your starting grid for the night, and we are on pit road, about to roll. Well, no, we're not on pit road. I forgot Charlotte, the new Charlotte. You start on the trial, so that's kind of interesting.
We got Jim Foose out on the chat saying the ultimate test of man and pixelated machine. 300 miles at Charlotte under the changing track conditions. Pull those belts tight, or pull those belts tight, I should say. As very quickly, I touched on it as I was looking at the wrong point standings earlier. But let me just give you the brief top 10 of those drivers who are, have a good chance at winning the Sim Speed Shop Wheelman Showdown. This is race number 4. So Scott Eckrich, your current pole sitter, or not pole sitter, your current leader, first place. Tyler Seville second, Thomas George third, Corey Silva fourth, Greg Evans fifth, Jeff Yenich in 6th, Will Worsler 7th, Johnny Avila 8th, AJ Digby 9th, which we're going to talk about AJ in a brief second, and Brian Yazik in 10th place. So that's your current top 10. So quickly bringing up the fact, we haven't mentioned AJ Digby tonight, and there's a good reason. AJ has a scheduling conflict, and he's not able to participate tonight because he is attending, and I'm trying to pull up the message so I don't say it wrong. He's attending the NCAA D3 Track National Championships. AJ Digby, our favorite Paralympian, and Twitter verified, I should say, is going out there to try to represent America and try to make sure that he's got himself he's not represent America right now, but he's going to try to win a championship here tonight because he is a really well-respected track athlete. So pace truck is off, and we're going to go green here for the start of the Charlotte World 300.
And it's going to be Scott Eckrich with a bit of a late start there. Not much of a jump from the leader. The outside lane sticking right with him on the quarter panel as they are 2 wide behind him. There's Tyler Seville on the inside of the number 29 machine, trying to hug that blue apron line as tight as he can. Maybe get some draft help from the leader as they make their way down the backstretch for the first time. That 29 car getting a run on the high side. The 70 car, the leader, Scott Eckrich, he moved up to the top, which gave a little bit of aero help to that 29. And that's going to keep them side by side. I think if I'm the leader, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Make sure that you split the draft up between these guys, try to keep them side by side, make them battle, and then they'll be using up their tires, their equipment, and you can hopefully drive off into the sunset. But now they are going to single file out as Tyler Seville completes the move going into 1, and he is going to be clear coming onto the backstretch. So single filed out for the top 3. Thomas George moved up a position from where he qualified. He's now P4. Adam Jersky P5. Troy Haight making a move on the bottom there. You can see a little bit further back. We got some 2 wide action. That's Troy Haight and Jackson Van Volkenberg duking it out side by side through the tri-oval. And I gotta tell you, Carlos, this tri-oval here at, technically it's a quad oval here at Charlotte, is kind of tricky. It feels a lot narrower than it is when you're in these cup cars. And the angles that you're taking these turns, being side by side, can be a very scary thing. And given that there's no asphalt runoff, it just immediately goes to grass. It can be a little tricky to navigate side by side, even especially if you were to get 3 wide, which I'm thinking these drivers are going to try to avoid at all costs, especially given the caution-free bounty. But right now, the closest battle, I'd say, is between Van Volkenberg and Troy Haight. And up front, it's that number 70 car starting to sail away like we've seen so many times.
Speaking of how treacherous and scary that quad part, that front stretch area kind of is, it's a track where it's a section where your vehicle is very, very light. So if you have to make a sudden adjustment, or you fall behind on your steering, you have a decent chance of maybe getting loose and wrecking. As we've seen in the past, not just with drivers in ASRS, but in multiple other leagues and broadcasts that we've had. It's something every driver needs to watch out for. But while you're speaking about Scott Eckrich and the massive lead that, well, not really massive at this point, but the lead that he has, we got a couple drivers that are really far away from the pack. That's Steve Yenish and Greg Evans. And what happens is, I'm assuming that they missed their stall because or they missed the start because they're far behind. We also have Clarence Bonner, the third, who actually has not started tonight's race. His team may be having some sort of issue as they're currently working on the car in the garage. But right now, Clarence Bonner has not started the race, and he is currently 27th.
Yeah, I would imagine that Yenish had missed the start there, like you said. Unfortunate, but I think if there was a race where you're going to miss the start and get a bit of a late jump, this would be the one to do it, because you have more time in this race to make up for any mistakes or setbacks than you do in any other race. We got 200 laps here, so plenty of time to try and get back in the game. Currently, Yenish is not a lap down, nor is Greg Evans. They're both being scored about 20 seconds back, so that's about 3/4 of a lap, a little over 3/4 probably, but eventually, just due to the fact that the leaders have draft and a little bit of aero advantage, they're probably going to catch up to these guys. But again, plenty of time for the lucky dog or wave arounds or any other means that they might have of getting back on the lead lap. And I'm noticing, Carlos, there's been a little bit of bump drafting. Charlotte is a track that has a lot of grip. Compared to some of these 1.5s, Auto Club, not much grip. Michigan, neither of those 1.5s. Those are 2-mile tracks. But a lot of these circuits that are kind of similar, they don't have much grip. Atlanta, that's a 1.5 with absolutely no grip. You go into the corner, you can feel that car slip sliding around, and you're just doing everything you can to control it. Same thing with Texas. Not a lot of grip at Texas. But here at Charlotte, you're driving a slot car. You can drive this thing down into the corner, right against that apron, and you can have 100% confidence that your car is going to stick. On fresh tires, you might not lift for the first 5, 6, 7 laps. And then as they wear, your off-throttle time still isn't that significant compared to other circuits. So, the draft is important here. And what I've been seeing is Will Worsler actually pushing the number 11 of Tyler Seville occasionally when he gets to him. So, bump drafting at a 1.5, that's a scary thing, but I'll tell you what, it seems to be working because neither of these guys is falling off of the leader. Scott Eckrich, we saw him drive away to a commanding lead early on last week. This week, not happening. Tyler Seville staying right with him alongside Will Worsler. And if these two continue to work together, I think that 70 is going to have his hands full with some competition pretty soon.
One of the things that a lot of drivers noticed when the new Cup package debuted in iRacing is it's kind of like you described, almost like slot car racing. The car has a bunch of grip, and you're able to stay with the leaders and even just compete for swapping the lead multiple times, as we saw early on. But that's something that kind of goes away, especially depending on the track. Because, Charlotte and Atlanta, they both have a lot of grip, and you can kind of just draft with the leader. But after 10, 15 laps, at least in Atlanta, that goes away, and your car just gets loose and loose, especially under traffic. And you kind of have to just feather it, and you can't go full throttle the whole way. I haven't actually driven in Charlotte at the Cup cars since the last package. So I can't speak to see if it's the same thing or if it's going to continue to have grip and just become an easy race for the guys up front to just stay behind with the leaders. But I do have confirmation from Jim Foose, or not confirmation, but a statement in a way from Jim Foose saying that Greg Evans is having some communications issues on his radio. They can hear Greg, but Greg can't hear anybody else. So it's a little bit of a hard thing to do, and that's why he's kind of running in the back, which is, I would say, safe. What he probably needs right now is a caution, so that he can just maybe back out of the car and tinker with the settings a little bit and try to get that figured out, because it's not a good thing when you can't hear anybody else, including race officials, because if you can't hear race officials and they have to tell you something, then they have reasons to black flag you or prevent you from running laps, whether they know that you're hearing them or you can't hear them.
Absolutely, it is a safety concern. I mean, even not legitimate safety. I mean, we're all sim racers sitting at home. We're not actually going to get hurt in a crash, but in terms of getting involved in incidents or worsening the experience for the drivers around you, if you can't communicate, like you said, it becomes an issue. The officials can't tell you anything. The drivers around you can't inform you of anything going on. A lot of times on the driver radio, somebody will come on and say, "Hey, there's a car spinning out of 2," or "This happened in 4," or maybe, "Hey, I'm on your outside." They might call out their lines if they need to. And if you can't hear any of that, you are at a distinct disadvantage versus those who can. So Greg Evans playing it smart, definitely taking it easy back there, trying to ride on his own. And like you said there, Carlos, I think he's going to need a yellow flag so he can get into his pits, maybe sit in the pit stall for a little while, mess with the settings. To me, it sounds like maybe a volume issue. If they can hear him, then clearly his voice chat is set up and it's working. His push-to-talk is enabled. But if he can't hear them, that might be an actual iRacing audio issue. And I know iRacing's audio, sometimes it can be a little glitchy like that. I've loaded up into the sim with no audio for no particular reason, not just chat audio. So he might need to work on that. Hopefully he can get that figured out because, as we mentioned, the number 2 car, Greg Evans, he's the points leader, you know? So he's coming into this race with nothing to gain and everything to lose. So you do not want to be running in the back of the pack. Especially at a race like this, which I would say is kind of almost a bit of a crown jewel event. I mean, it's the longest race of the season. We got some special paint schemes in the field tonight, a lot of patriotic paint schemes. This is a race I think a lot of these guys were looking forward to, so hopefully he can get that figured out so we're running back up in the pack and really figure out what his car can do. But the battle for the lead continuing as Tyler Seville is lingering about 0.2 seconds back, give or take. There's the rear bumper came on the leader, Scott Eckridge. Looking back at that teal hood of the number 11. Behind the number 11, we do have a bit of a shakeup. Will Wursler has fallen out of 3rd, now replaced by Thomas George in that 88. He's having a pretty good early run, 0.9 seconds back from the leader. And he is slowly gaining on these 2 cars ahead of him. I think right now, being 0.9 seconds back, that's just about on the bubble of the draft. But on your screen right there, that was the number 84, Woody Mahan. He's having a pretty good run for himself tonight, up into P7. And he's got a lot of clear track around him, not much battling going on. And I think that's kind of the experience a lot of these drivers are having, Carlos. We talked about the high grip levels here at Charlotte. And this is kind of what we're going to see early on when the tires are fresh. A lot of single file, a lot of separation here. And as the tires wear, that's when things change because everybody's going to be using up their equipment at a different pace. Some drivers are driving a little bit harder. Some drivers are conserving. And we're going to see a bit of a shakeup there. But speaking of shakeups, Carlos, something I think we should mention going into this race is that last night... the iRacing admins put out a note that they have found that apparently the Chevrolet is at a aero disadvantage.
Yeah.
So the Chevrolet having issues at a track like this where it is very aero dependent, that could come into play tonight. And I'm not sure how the drivers have handled it in this league. I know a lot of different leagues. Some of the Chevrolet drivers have decided that they're going to jump ship and drive the Ford or the Toyota for the time being. Supposedly they got the aero issue fixed this morning. But there's no real good testing or knowledge at this point whether or not it was actually fixed. But I just figured I'd point that out. If you don't see too many Chevys in the field tonight, that might be why. But we do have quite a few. We got Thomas George in the Chevrolet alongside Will Wursler, who, look at that, Carlos, Will Wursler making his way back up towards 3rd. He fell back a little bit. Now on the bumper of that 88.
I do want to point out, your current top 5 is all Chevrolet. Scott Eckridge, Tyler Seville, Thomas George, Will Wursler, Johnny Avila. They're all Chevrolets. And we got 3 Fords, which is Brian Yazik, Woody Mahan, and Jackson Van Volkenberg. And to round up your top 10, we have 2 Chevrolets. That's Adam Jersky and Troy Haight. No Toyota in the top 10. As a matter of fact, the fastest Toyota right now is Jeff Janisch, who's currently in 17th. So, I'm not sure if iRacing hasn't figured out an issue with Toyota or what, but Yeah, that was the talk of iRacing yesterday and today, which is the Chevrolets being underpowered. And you mentioned like one of the bigger deals were the Coke Series drivers. Some of them had to, or they felt that they had to switch to a Ford or Toyota to kind of be competitive. And we saw Toyota winning yesterday in the Coke Series, Ray Alfala, for like the first time in like just under a year. He got himself back in victory lane, but not too many Chevys in that race, and they all mostly seem to struggle. If you look at the results, it's a little bit of a mix and mash, but that's also because there was a lot of wrecking towards the latter half of the race. But today, though, Chevrolet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we got 7 Chevrolets in the top 10. And also something to point out, Scott Eckridge dominating ASRS. He was dominating ASRS with an underpowered race car. So now that supposedly that car is fixed, we may see him just get like 2 laps in the competition.
Absolutely. If because we don't really know how long this issue has been with the Chevy. Like we're not entirely sure which update introduced the issue, but definitely it didn't ever seem to hold back Eckridge. And like you said, our entire top 5, it's all Chevy. So the admins seem to have thought that the Chevy was at a disadvantage, and the Coke Series seem to have thought that. But these drivers, Scott Eckridge, Tyler Seville, Thomas George, they said, what disadvantage? I don't see it. I'm not noticing it, because they're up there running pretty dang good. But starting to get a little bit more separation as Tyler Seville and Eckridge are both starting to break away from 3rd and 4th. Roughly about a second from the first pack back to the second, and on the screen right there, that's a whole gaggle of cars behind the 88. So starting to close up the field, I think, a little bit here, kind of close up the separation. As I said, when the tires start to wear, you're going to see a little bit of that. But right now, they probably are starting to feel the effects pretty heavy. We're on lap 27. 28 is the leaders going to cross the line. Whoa! Huge moment there. That was, not too many times.
It's too early, and these guys, they all know each other, so I doubt that was an intentional block, but that's kind of what it looked like. He just dipped down all the way to the inside of the backstretch when he got off the corner, which I'm assuming maybe his car got loose and he just corrected it to the inside. But wow, that's a little increase of the heart rate there.
Yeah, that was almost the $80 caution-free bounty up in smoke there, but luckily they kept it under control. And I'll tell you what, Carlos, I don't know what it is about the backstretch here at Charlotte and the apron in particular, but blocking is really tempting at this track. Maybe it's because the apron kind of feels really similar to the racing surface. There's really no change in banking, no change in how smooth the surface is. But I've seen a lot of drivers throw some pretty crazy blocks on the backstretch in any series that tends to come here. I've seen people do it in street stocks. I've seen people do it in cup cars. I've seen people do it in the truck series. So you do tend to see that here sometimes, and sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes, like in the case of the 27, I think he might have just got a little bit squirrely coming down the backstretch. Maybe the rear end got a little bit light. He came down to try and catch it, and obviously there was some traffic there that kind of nearly caused an issue. But everybody was able to get out unscathed as we now go to our onboard cam. And with this onboard cam, you can really listen to the throttle inputs a little bit and kind of see exactly how these guys are navigating the track. And again, you can tell by the way this car is going into the corner. Look at the levels of grip that they got. He's driving that thing in there deep, no problem getting it to the bottom, and then coming out of the corner, he's kind of gingerly drifting it back up towards the outside wall. It's not sliding up there. It's not unsettled. It's just a very casual arc up out of the corner. A lot of car control with the level of grip we have. And it makes for some really fun racing. For sure. I mean, when the drivers have full control of their car like this and they're not fighting it at every step, eventually, as this race goes on and the intensity level goes up, you're going to see a lot of really crazy moves and side-by-side battles.
That's something to note. Lap 31 of 200. One of the messages I did get from our secret insider driver is that most of the guys, they're going to try to do what the Coke Series drivers tried doing yesterday, which was kind of splitting it and going down pit road twice at around 67, 67, and then 66. So if that's the case, then we're we're about the halfway mark on that fuel run, and this first fuel run is going to be incredibly important for a lot of the drivers, whether you're Scott Eckrich or Jordan Harnish, or even in the back like Kevin Stone and Jason Stewart right now. You have to kind of like take notes as to how the vehicle is handling right now in traffic, and as the tires go on, and then see how you can adjust that, because this is a fixed setup race, and I know, Andre, you kind of mostly commentate on open setup races, so there's a lot that they can do. Well, maybe not a lot that they can do during pit stops, but there's some things that they can do. But in fixed setup races, you can't do anything at all, except for changing your approach. And while it seems small, it's a really, really big thing to change your approach. All these cars are the same, supposedly. For the last couple of weeks, we don't know how long the Chevrolet wasn't the same, but supposedly all these cars are the same. So that means that everybody should theoretically be able to run the same lap times, the same tire wear, the same everything. Yet we see such a big gap in skill and lap times and everything. And that has to do with the way that you approach the corner, both mentally and physically, and how you input and how you think about what's going to happen in the future. So that's why we see drivers like Scott Eckrich and Tyler Seville pulling away from the rest. And we see some drivers in the middle packed all the way to the back. And that's because some of them are being able to adjust how they approach the track, and some of them may not be able to adjust much or even any at all. And unfortunately for me, I'm one of the drivers that really doesn't adjust much, so I'm always in the middle to the back of the pack. But that's one of the things you always have to keep an eye out for. And this first run, this first 60 or so laps, it's going to be very important, because you need to figure out what you can and can't do so that you can improve yourself in the latter 2/3 of the race.
It really is difficult to change your approach, and it is extremely difficult to try and keep your car as fresh and as in good condition as possible. If you can't change the car, change how you drive it. And with iRacing, that means a lot, because the way the tire temps work in iRacing is almost like a domino effect. If you slide into the corner, your tires are going to be hot, and they're going to be hot for probably the next half a lap. While they're hot, it's going to be easier to slide into the next corner and warm them up even more. And as those temps continue to rise and you continue to slide as a result, you're going to be scuffing those tires up and wearing them out even quicker. And depending on how the next guy is driving, you might end up putting yourself at a disadvantage where 10 laps before they even notice the tire fall off, you've dropped half a second on your lap times. So you do have to be very conservative with your tires in these fixed setup leagues, because there's nothing you can really do. Like you said, you can't come into the pits and make an adjustment to get better on the long run. You can't rely on the car to do your job for you. You know, in open setup leagues, sometimes if somebody is known for driving the car really hard and they're not very good at conserving, they can set the car up to compensate for that. And they can say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put more weight on the right rear so that tire is taking the brunt of the impact and not the right front. That way I don't lose the steer in as the run goes on. And then they don't have to worry as much about how hard they're driving. But in this fixed setup league, it is all about how you drive. And you cannot let the car do your job for you. It is all up to the driver. And like I said, that's why we see such big gaps in skill and lap times, because it comes down to your approach and how good you are at just knowing the mechanics of iRacing, knowing how the car works, knowing how the tires are going to change and be impacted by your maneuvers throughout the race. So it's definitely interesting to see. And you do notice in these fixed setup races, drivers do tend to run different lines a little bit more frequently, because they're all trying different things, trying to get everything out of their car that they possibly can. So that'll be interesting to watch as the race goes on, and we do inch closer to our first pit sequence. But on your screen for a little while there was the number 12, Jackson Van Wolkenberg. He's at the tail end of a 3-car pack right now, running at P8. He's now maybe looking to the high side of the number 84, who's been running 7th. William Hahn, of course, in that 84, he's been in 7th pretty much since the drop of the green, but now under fire from the 12 as we go on board of them. You can see just how close it is. He is on the bumper. Jackson Van Wolkenberg out of Forest Hill. Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. I'm not as good at rattling off the sponsors as Peter normally is, but, you know, we try. Shout out to the sponsors. As now, Wolkenberg down to the bottom. He's going to make that move completely clean, not much resistance from Wheelman. He kind of gave up that position, said, all right, you got there. I'm not going to fight you for it. We're just going to fall back in line and do our thing. And ahead of them, all this battling has allowed Brian Yazik to pull away a little bit, just a few tenths, about 3 or 4 tenths from the car behind. But going into turn 1, the 12 car pretty much closed that gap immediately, as looks like we have another 3-car battle on your screen. That is being spearheaded by the number 88, Thomas George. And trying to make a move on the high side is that number 63, Johnny Avila. He had a great run last week. So he's carrying a lot of momentum into this race. And it seems like right now, Carlos, he might be quicker than the 88, because he's going to dive it down to the bottom, door to door. Let's see if the 88 can get the run coming out. Maybe not. Advantage to the 63 coming down the backstretch, but here comes the run. The 88 did get a bit of acceleration coming out of the turn, now into 3 and 4. Is the 63 going to be able to slide job him? Turns 3 and 4, remember, that's the tighter end of the track. The corner is a little bit tighter, and there's a little bit more banking, so it drives a lot differently than turns 1 and 2, and the top lane's a little bit more powerful in 3 and 4, so that kind of helped the 88 there to stay side by side. As they go into turn 1, there we go. The bottom lane does prevail. It's a lot better in turn 1 than it is in turn 3. So Avila up to P3. He's going to claim a podium position for now.
Something I was noticing while we had that beautiful drone camera shot throughout turns 1 and 2, or pardon me, 3 and 4 last time by, is that it seems like Thomas George may have been like just over pushing his tires or something, because when they went into the corner, George chose the outside line and Avila chose the inside line, and as George just loses the position to Will Worsler right now, dropping him down to 5th. But if you're on the outside line, typically what we're expecting to see is you're going to lose some time in the middle of the corner, but you're going to get a really great drive off, and that's kind of how you battle. The inside line's expected to get the advantage. The outside line kind of needs to make sure that they stay like next to them so that they can get a good drive off without being blocked. But when I saw that in the corner, in the entry of the corner, it seemed like Avila was definitely pushing past, just slightly faster than George. But throughout the middle of the corner, it just seemed like George just like got off the brake or just sped up very quickly. But he actually went faster than Avila and actually overtook him in the middle of the corner on the outside. And then they kind of had a similar drive off. So something's telling me that the way that George is approaching the track right now may be a little too much on his tires, and that's why we're seeing him drop a couple spots.
It could be. It all goes back to what we said about your approach to driving and how hard you are on your equipment over the run. And it does look like that 88 used his stuff up. I noticed that too. When he goes into the corner, he just can't drive it in as deep. His front tires start to give way, and he's got to let off that throttle, get that car gathered up. So he's going to have to figure that out, maybe change his approach, change his line as the race goes on. And that's the nice thing about a race that's as long as this one, is you have more time to learn, figure out the track, figure out the car, and try to make changes. It's not like if you don't know the track at the beginning of the race, or if you're not as confident at the beginning, you might find something. You might feel a little bit better about it by the time we reach, say, lap 150. So that'll be something to watch. I have faith that the 88 will definitely work on figuring out the tire usage. And I mean, right now, even though he's burned up his equipment a little bit quicker than the other guys, still running P5, and you can never complain about a top 5 run. So Will Worsler got around the 88, and he was actually at one point right on the bumper of Johnny Avila for 3rd. He fell back a little bit, and I got to wonder if maybe he didn't heat his tires up a little bit too much making the charge. Now he's letting them cool down, and he's going to make another run at it here shortly. But the other thing on my mind is, how worth it is it to start really battling right now for position, Carlos? Because you mentioned a lot of these guys probably going to pit sometime around lap 62, 63-ish. And we're only about 13, 14 laps from that. So I think getting in a battle now, especially on worn tires, costing yourself time, maybe not beneficial compared to just running your line, trying to get to this first pit sequence, and then once you get those fresh tires, that's when you want to start making moves.
Speaking of tires, one of the things that we need to go over is we actually had a couple of drivers not in pit road right now. Doug Mullins and Richard Fletcher. They're both, well, Mullins just left pit road, but Fletcher's in pit road right now. As it looks like pit stops are maybe starting, but these drivers have 5 sets of tires tonight, as pointed out by Jim Foose out in the chat. For 200 laps. That includes the set of tires you start in. So in pit road, they only have 4 sets of tires as Woody Mahan goes down pit road. So right now, it's kind of yelling at me that we may have a very, very long run race. If we do get a caution, I don't have a feeling that we're going to have multiple cautions throughout the night. So I get the feeling like it's going to be a long run, and we're not going to try to jinx it, but it has the screamings of a caution-free race, much to the chagrin of Sam Maxwell, who unfortunately he may have to pull out his checkbook tonight. But a lot of drivers down pit road: Troy Haight, Mahan, Jason Stewart, Tim Knott, and Kevin Stone, as well as Jersky, Jordan Harnish, I apologize, has gone down pit road as well. The question is, it's lap 52. Our intel was telling us, a lot of drivers try to spread it into 2 stops. This is not spreading into 2 stops. This is going to be 3 stops at a minimum, if they're pitting right now.
Yeah, what I'm seeing, I think there's one of 2 possibilities going on right now. Possibility 1 is that there are currently 2 differing ideologies, because if some of these guys came in at lap 50, that would put them pitting at lap 50, lap 100, and then lap 150 with a 50-lap run to the end at 200. That would be 3 stops. But, as we were told, stretch it out as far as lap 66, which would then put them pitting at around lap 132 with a 68-lap run to the end, which would be 2 more laps than what they did on both of their pit stops. That would be a stretch. Trying to go 68 laps on a run would be pretty far here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and I don't doubt that it's possible. I think with enough conservation, with enough throttle control, and enough patience, you could do it. The question is, would it be worth it? How much time would you have to give up? So either everybody has conceded that they're just not going to make that 68-lap run at the end, or as Scott Eckridge continues to run his way through the track and he has yet to come down pit road, maybe, like I said, it's just 2 different ideas of, the 3 stops going to be faster than 2 because you don't have to slow down and conserve at that. It's going to be interesting to see, and that's the thing about the Coke 600. Even in real life, the Coke 600 has always been a strategy race. It's longer than any other race. The fuel mileage is more difficult to manage than any other race. And we've seen a lot of crazy moments at the end of these things because of that. And in this sim, it's no different.
Crowback going down pit road right now. Slice is tiring a little bit, but not too bad. Jordan Harnish has just posted the fastest lap of the race, 30.11. So what's important about that is that at the end of the race, the driver that has the fastest lap does get 1 point for the point standing. So currently right now, Jordan Harnish would be receiving that 1 point. Previously, it was actually Scott Eckridge. But that is going to change as the sun goes down and the temperatures cool down a little bit, as I'm not sure who that was, but it's a driver that got a little loose with the fresh tires. And Andre, this is something that, as a driver, is very scary, because I've been in both ends, where you stay out as late as you can, as the road goes down pit road, stay out as late as you can, and then have to just hope that those drivers with the fresher tires don't run into the back of you in the corners. And I've gone down pit road early, hoping for no caution, and then exited pit road trying to get the most I can out of my tires, but you're like 5, 10, 15 miles an hour faster than the other guys in the corner, and you're pretty much just like playing, what were those old games, what were those old racing games where you kind of like, you're just going past everybody, you have to choose lanes and move around and not run into the back of them, because that's kind of what it feels like. It's very scary, especially when you approach a battle of like 2 wide or something, and they're not going to give you the position, so you have to make sure you pick the right time and moment to pass them without getting involved, and that sometimes puts you in 3 or 4 wide positions, and sometimes it leads into wrecks.
I think pole position is one of the
There we go, that's what I was about to say, Grand Prix or something.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game. I love pole position. But you're right. When you have different strategies where some drivers are staying out a substantially long time compared to some of the other guys, the closing rate between fresh tires and old tires is absolutely extreme. And when you're watching it on camera and you see the cars close in on one another, you think, well, that doesn't look that bad. That doesn't look that scary. I mean, they got plenty of time to react. But the truth of the matter is, stock cars are very high horsepower cars that weigh way too much on tires that are way too thin. And it's not just about having time to react, it's about giving the car time to settle in and be able to make the maneuver with the car that you need to make to get an overtake. If you're closing in on somebody at a rate of 20 miles an hour faster than they're going, it's not just about seeing them and thinking, oh, well, I just need to take the high line here because they're holding the bottom and I'll just pass them up there. Your car may not be physically capable of switching to the high lane without breaking the rear end loose or sliding the front tires, because they are very fickle machines. These stock cars, despite how counterintuitive it seems, they're cars that were built to go fast that weren't built to go fast. They handle very poorly. So, you know, that closing rate, like Carlos said, it puts you in a lot of crazy 3-wide, 4-wide situations. And sometimes the driver is able to react to it, but the car can't.
And that's something that the drivers will need to adjust themselves for next season with the 2021 next gen car. Pardon me, 2022 next gen car. I'm living in the past, it seems. As you know, one of the reasons that they went to single lug nuts or the mono lug is because they gave them they got bigger, wider tires, and they felt that not only are those tires bigger and wider, but they're also I believe aluminum, or they're going to be aluminum, so they're a lot lighter. So it's, you know, that's going to help them out. It's not going to get rid of what you mentioned, but it is something that that is going to change it up for next year, and the drivers will need to adjust for that. As the race leader, Scott Eckridge goes down Perry Road, giving the lead to Thomas George.
And he's pitting on lap 62.
Mm-hmm.
So, doing some quick math here, that is a little bit early, because that would put his second pit stop somewhere around lap 124, which then, in turn, would put a 76-lap run to the end of the race, which that is not possible. There's no way anybody is going 76 laps. So I think, Carlos, the second possibility that I mentioned is what we're seeing play out. I think everybody has kind of decided there's no way we're making a 68-lap run to the end. It would take too much conservation. We'd lose too much time trying to save that fuel and the tires as well. So I think most of the field, if not all of them, have kind of conceded, yep, this is a 3-stop race. And at the same time, that might be bad news for some of the drivers that held out. Scott Eckridge now making his way out of pit road. You can see him on the tail end of the screen there as the 88 is making his way down into 3 and 4. That's your current leader. We're going to see if he makes his way onto the pits. And yes, he's going to dip down beneath that blue line, so he makes his way down pit road. But like we mentioned, a lot of drivers pitted somewhere around lap 50, which is a good 12 laps before Scott Eckridge did. That's a lot of time that Eckridge has lost to those guys, just staying out there on these old tires. Now, of course, that's going to balance out. The drivers who pitted early will eventually have tires that are a lot older and a lot slower in turn than Scott Eckridge. But, whoa, and as you pointed out there, Myers really missing his pit stall, as now he's getting the right side of the car jacked up. We're going to take a look at the 3Y TV multicam as some more cars make their way down pit road to get serviced. On your screen, that is the number 69, Adam Jersky, and the Adam Beef Jersky's Cheesecakes machine. I'm not as good at rattling off the sponsors, but we try. He is currently sitting 211. I am not. He is leaps and bounds ahead of me. I am sorry for anybody that stuck with me for this broadcast, but anyways,
sorry about that, Andre. I want to quickly point out, new fastest lap, 29.99, belongs to Scott Eckridge, so he's going to retake that point for the time being. As a matter of fact, Jim, I would say, because my chat is a little delayed sometimes, I think Jim called it out before I did, but I did not see it. But yeah, Jim calling it out, saying Eckridge last lap, 29.968, fastest lap of the race so far. So that bonus point goes to him. And for those who are in here wondering, for all those Peter Short fans, all 2 of you are wondering, oh, well, where's Peter Short? Thankfully, he's not sick today. He has prior commitments. A co-worker of his is retiring, and they are celebrating the retirement. So giving Peter the night off, trying to make sure he doesn't dip early from a party. And in the time being, we got me. So yay! I'm sure I won't hear the end of it. But yeah, the majority of the drivers are going down Perry Road. Look at this, Steve Yenish, 67, 68. That's enough. Yenish out here trying to do that strategy, Andre. And I don't know. Scott Eckridge, the 24, not Tyler Seville, but who else went down early? 62, Johnny Avila. All those drivers who we thought were staying out, Thomas George included, they did not go enough. We don't think, but. the fact that we're seeing Steve Yenish go down on lap 68, which I have strong feeling to believe that that's the latest he could stretch it, is telling me that some of these guys went down pit road a little too soon.
Maybe. I think Yenis just proved that is a viable strategy because with him pitting on lap 68, that is going to put him pitting again on lap 136, which leaves him a 64-lap run to the end, which is 4 laps less than he just went. So more than doable. He could definitely make this on 2 stops. The question is, how much time has he given up on those old tires? I don't think he's going to have to save fuel. That's a good thing. He's not going to have to save fuel now. He pretty much should be good. I think these 60-some-odd lap runs that he's going to have are doable with the fuel cell we have. So it's going to be all about whether or not he gave up time on those old tires and whether or not he can make up for it by not having to pit an extra time. It's going to be interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on Yenis. And I think Yenis is one of those drivers that, you know, he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He missed the start. He was running in the back of the pack there with Greg Evans, who I believe is still having communication issues. So if he wanted to get back up front, Carlos, he had to throw the wrench at the wall. He had to try something. And I think stretching out this fuel, trying to get a 2-stop strategy, might have been his way of doing that, as everybody else is pretty much committed to this 3-stop. I mean, our current leader, Scott Eckrich, he is definitely going to have to pit 2 more times. So that is going to be really interesting, and I think the strategy might be the determining factor here as this night progresses. But also, going back to that fast lap, I was going to mention this, and I kind of got derailed there. I forgot what I was going to say, as I tend to do. I'm going to make a prediction, Carlos. I don't think that's the last fast lap we see of the night. The track is going to get faster and faster all night long. The sun has gone down. We started this race in the late evening. Now it is firmly into nighttime territory, and the track is cooling down. And in addition to that, we're laying down a bunch of rubber. So grip levels are increasing, even higher than they were, which means lap times, they're going to get faster. So next time these cars come down pit road, the track's going to be in more optimal condition than it was this time. I think we're going to see maybe another fast lap. Whether it goes right back to Scott Eckrich and he improves on that lap, or somebody else claims it, I don't know. But I definitely think we're going to see something faster than that 29.8 by the time the night is done.
Oh, for sure. The with the temperatures going down and the rubber that's being laid down, it's not going to be an issue for these drivers to put in a faster lap time, which we saw briefly. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't the race leader Scott Eckrich, or well, at the time race leader Scott Eckrich, but they had the fastest lap time, and then Scott Eckrich went down pit road and was like, I'm gonna get it now. The only driver in the sub 30-second mark, actually, I should point out, he's the only driver there, 29.968 that Jim noted down. Currently, your top 5 is Tyler Seville, who went down pit road on lap 56. Then on lap 62, Scott Eckrich. Let me go ahead and pull up the lap time information. Let me see if I have it in here. Pit stop lap. There you go. So Tyler Seville, currently +2 from where he started. He went down pit road on 56, 60 on lap 62. Scott Eckrich, Will Wursler on 58. Woody Mahan went on lap 50. That's the earliest so far. And then Brian Dosick went down pit road on 57. Same thing with Jackson Van Valkenburg. So lots of lap times fluctuating around and everything. And do apologize, AJ. I did want to try to find that information for you and see those last couple laps before they went down pit road. But unfortunately, my software doesn't show who went down. Like, it does show that information, but if a driver has the same last name as somebody else, it's going to prioritize a driver that's ahead of position, no matter if I put that name again. So, I do apologize for that, as it was showing me the information for Yef Yenish, Steve's brother. So, Steve Yenish was the driver I wanted to take a look at, but unfortunately, it's not letting me. But shout out to Jim, who was able to provide that the leaders lost about 1.9 to 2.5 seconds by the end of the run. So one of the questions AJ had in the chat was, is that strategy going to be worth it? Because at some point you lose too much time. Pitting 2 times is going to be a net loss compared to going down pit road 3 times. I don't think that's the case here tonight. This isn't Atlanta, but it is something that you can't just throw away and dismiss.
Absolutely. I don't think the fall off is too severe here compared to some of the other 1.5. So, like you said, it's not Atlanta, and I think maybe this two-stop strategy would be more viable here than anywhere else. But again, we don't know until it plays out. We're gonna have to wait and see. But things are about to get real interesting for the lead. Tyler Seville is leading, like you mentioned, Carlos. I almost said was, but that'd be a little preemptive, but not too preemptive because Scott Eckridge is currently lapping about 0.3 of a second faster per lap than the leader. He's on roughly 12 to 13 lap pressure tires, I believe. So, yeah, his car is going to be feeling a little bit better. It's going to plateau eventually. Eventually, both these cars are going to be on tires that are so old that they are essentially feeling the same despite the age difference. But right now, the 70 still has a little bit of grip in the tank. As you can see those lap time differentials on your screen. 0.4 seconds, 0.5, 0.2, 0.3, 0.3, consistently closing up the gap. And now he's there as they come out of the quad oval into turn 1. He's going to make the move down to the bottom in the 11. Not able to play defense. Those older tires, not quite able to throw that block, but he is going to stay strong on the outside with the 45 providing a little bit of draft help to the 70. Going into turn 3. And yep, there we go. Scott Eckridge clear into the lead. And now I think he's going to drive away with it, Carlos. Oh, as he gets a little bit loose, almost, it looked like, coming out of the turn there.
The last
He's
lap.
got fresher tires.
Go on.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say speaking of loose, last lap, Woody Mahan got loose exiting 4 and just barely clipped the grass. He wasn't even off track for that long. I would say he was about off track for just a couple tenths of a second. So it's something these guys do have to be careful for. We also got Jim Foose on the chat saying one thing about Charlotte is the asphalt is now 15 years old, but it still has the grip of a brand new surface. It's probably the highest grip level at a 1.5 mile track on the surface. He's also out there saying Kansas might have more grip as it was scanned almost immediately after the 2012 repave/reconfiguration.
It definitely does have the most grip out of the 1.5s. It's absolutely correct. We talked about it at the top of the broadcast, and we've kind of mentioned it all throughout the night, but it's one of the things that makes this track so interesting. It's so different from a lot of the circuits on this simulator. I mean, when you think iRacing, you think loose. A lot of the cars are very slippery. The slip angle is very finicky on this simulator. There's not too many tracks and car combos where you can go and you really feel like, yeah, this car is planted underneath me. But this is one of them. You can go to this track in this Cup car and barring extremely worn tires or a damaged vehicle, your car is going to feel pretty good all throughout the run, which, again, having that comfortable handling allows these drivers to make some maneuvers that they maybe otherwise wouldn't risk at other tracks like Atlanta, where they're at constant risk of spinning out or losing the rear end. So it's definitely interesting. It's a fun track to drive because it just feels like you're driving a slot car, man. You go into those corners and you can just drive it in so deep, and the car feels so good. It's a ton of fun. I love this track. But interesting to note, John Eckert, he is a lap down in P22, but he is keeping pace with the leader. At one point, he actually lapped a little bit faster, I think, than the leader, and he is kind of just staying within drafting range there. His strategy has kind of put him a little bit behind, but the car definitely has the pace. So being on a little bit fresher tires than the leader, I believe, definitely helping. But yeah, lap traffic not giving up without a fight, and he is the first car a lap down. So that would be to stay on the lead lap if you were to get up there and race with the leader. Grant Brown, the next car a lap down, is not far behind him. That's the 00, who is actually right behind them, battling with Tyler Seville. And then, of course, behind Grant Brown, you've got Steve Yenish, who is, I believe, if I'm correct here, the only driver that is going for the two-stop strategy. He is currently making his way around the 00, trying to be the second car a lap down. Kevin Stone, the final car, 1 lap down in that number 17 machine. And then from there, you got some cars 2 laps down. Mark Myers, Richard Fletcher, and Clarence Bonner, 26 laps down. Or no, he never even started the race. I was looking at the wrong info there, but he never even started the race. So a lot of cars still on the lead lap, which kind of surprising. 86 laps in, we are approaching the halfway point, and we have 20 cars on the lead lap. That is impressive.
Also, just realized I had telemetry set to last lap for, I'm assuming, the last hour or so. So I'm going to set that back to gap so you guys can see just how far away some of these guys are. Although I do know that I get a lot of comments saying, hey, show us the last lap. But currently 20 drivers on the lap, 21 M back, a lap or more down. And I got my binoculars out here. I'm taking a look at that garage style, and it kind of looks like Clarence Bonner is packing up his team is packing up that vehicle in the truck. Looks like there may be some sort of electrical issue or something, but they could not start the race, and it looks like at this point they're just packing up shop as we are about 12 laps away from halfway.
We are quickly approaching that halfway mark, and I gotta say, this race is going by pretty quick, Carlos. I think these drivers definitely wanting to claim that caution-free bounty. Again, it's up to $80 amongst the drivers, which is pretty substantial. I think if there was ever a track to be able to
hold on.
bounty,
Let me correct you. It's $80 within the top 10 who's had a clean race. Let me confirm with you. I do believe it's that, but I have a lot of things going on in my head, and I just want to make sure I am gonna say the right thing. But keep on talking while I look this up.
Absolutely. So on the screen right there, that is the number 84. Yep, that is the 84. I almost had it wrong there. But again, Woody Mahan has been having a silently good night. He's been in 7th pretty much the entire race, all the way up to this point. And after his qualifying effort, staying in the top 10, it's going to be a good points day for him. Again, a driver that was a little bit closer, I think, to that P20 in points bubble. So a good run tonight would get him, I believe, depending on where everybody else finishes, within that P20 position, which would get him a guaranteed starting position. So a lot of drivers battling it out for that coveted guaranteed position, and Mahan among them as he continues to work his way around the track. And just kind of panning through the field, it seems like everybody is currently just running their lines, trying to make it to the next sequence. And up front, of course, it's going to be Scott Eckrich still, who now, after a few laps, has gotten out to about a 2.6 second lead over Tyler Seville in that number 11. And actually, Tyler Seville may soon be under fire by Will Worsler in that number 29, who is 5 seconds behind him, about 3 seconds back from Seville. But at one point, he was 4 seconds back from Seville. So he's closing that gap. Will Worsler slowly climbing up the running order all night long. Johnny Avila running P4 right now behind him. And Brian Yazek rounds out your top 5 with Jackson Van Wolkenberg just on the outside looking in by about 0.4 of a second. He is trying to get around Brian Yazek, but not quite able to get it done quite yet, but we'll give him some time. Again, a lot of racing left here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And a lot of single files so far, just everybody running their lines, being pretty patient.
Keep going. I'm still doing research. Oh, hold on. Never mind. Jim just bailed me out. The winner, if he has an incident-free race, gets $10. Then the remaining money is awarded through a drawing of all incident-free drivers who complete 75 or more of the events in $10 increments. So it's not between every driver. It's only the race winner who's guaranteed those $10 if that race winner has an incident-free race on the race that the bounty is claimed. And then from there, every single driver who has an incident-free race in that race is entered into a drawing, which is only going to be however many drivers of the incident-free bounty minus 10 divided by 10.
It is quite the complicated system. I appreciate.
No, it's not. Here's the thing, though. Jim wrote it beautifully. I butchered the explanation. There's a reason why I'm always sitting in the back, working the graphics and running the show and everything. It's because I got the voice for Southern Films. But yeah, Peter and you and Greg and all of our commentators, they're speaking for a reason.
Leave it to the league admins to do the job of us commentators when we slip up. We appreciate Jim Foose popping into the chat and kind of guiding us through tonight. He's been the guiding voice, it seems like, tonight. Again, we appreciate it as this race continues. But not too long ago, Carlos, we saw some cars on pit road, and I guess I'm not too surprised. A lot of these guys that were now pretty much dedicated and stuck to that 3-stop strategy, they didn't necessarily have to go all the way to lap 100 because if they're going to come in again anyways sometime around lap 150 or 160, then they don't need to worry about saving or coming in super late and stretching it out. So could be a bit of a good move there. Doug Mullins was among those to come down pit road just a few laps ago, and now his lap times are going to be substantially quicker than anybody who has yet to pit. So that may be the saving grace for Mullins, as he has currently scored 1 lap down in 24th, but of course that will all change once everybody else comes down pit road and cycles through. I'm not entirely sure where he was running prior to the pit stop, but Doug Mullins, I definitely think may gain a little bit from that short stock strategy. And on the camera right now, you're currently looking at the leader, who is dealing with a little bit of lap traffic, just a little bit, as they are kind of boxing him in there. He's down to the bottom of the track trying to navigate the number 41. 41 staying strong on the outside, but it's not going to be enough. The number 70 getting clear of him. Now sights set on Jason Stewart, who will be the next car to go a lap down. Coming through the quad oval, it's a huge run. Jason Stewart came across the radio, said go ahead and take it. He was not even going to fight for that. So he's going to let him go, drop down to the bottom, and now the leader is back in clear track for quite some time. The track ahead of him is pretty much completely clear. Is a little bit of a bump draft from Jason Stewart going into turn 3. Again, we've seen that a few times, Carlos. A little bit of bump drafting here at this 1.5. Unusual to see at other 1.5s, but here at Charlotte, it tends to be the strategy.
So we are on lap 100 right now. As soon as this lap is completed, we are going to have 100 more laps. And Peter, yes, we are caution free right now. Go enjoy your party. You don't have to. You don't have to come in here and check us out, but we do appreciate it. That being said, lap 100. All right, I think it's time, because we've been given, a little bit of a word by the race admins and everything, and they want us to kind of like take a look, because this is the Memorial race, or the Memorial Day race, I should say. A lot of the drivers are out here in very patriotic-looking colors and schemes. We've been told to kind of go ahead and pick our favorites right now. I'm a little biased, okay? I'm a little biased. But I really love my favorite so far. My pick is the number 1 of Jason Stewart, and I know it doesn't make sense, because his scheme, as he's going to go down pit road as well as Michael Krobach and a couple of the drivers, is based on one of Jeff Gordon's Memorial Day schemes. To get a better look at it, I love it. It's my favorite scheme so far, and I don't know about you, but right now this is my favorite.
It definitely is a nice scheme, and I actually didn't know that was based on a Gordon scheme. I guess I should have guessed with the Flames, but my favorite paint scheme so far tonight is also making its way down pit road. It's the number 17, Kevin Stone. I really like this paint scheme. He's got the stars all the way down the blue section of the car there. I'm not sure if it's based on anything, but I just love the way that it's kind of split up and the stripes on the side. It's a very slick-looking car, a very fast-looking car. I enjoy that quite a bit. So shout out to Kevin Stone for that beautiful paint scheme here at the Memorial Day race at Charlotte. And I guess those are going to be our picks for the paint schemes, but those are just the ones that are our favorites. There are a ton of beautiful paint schemes out on the track tonight, including Mark Myers. That's another one. That would be another one that I almost would have picked over the 17. That 04 machine with the stars and stripes kind of got the paint splatter effect going on there. I really enjoy the look of that. Especially on the hood with those stripes coming back towards the cockpit there, kind of fades into the blue. That's a beautiful scheme too. So all the drivers doing a phenomenal job bringing some of the best looking cars that they could have brought out to Charlotte tonight.
So those are the 2 schemes we're choosing. The number 1 and the what was the number of yours again?
The number 17.
The number 17. I'm trying to find them in here so I can click on the name of Kevin Stone. All right, we're just gonna look at Kevin Stone's paint scheme right now, and we want you guys to weigh in your opinions as to which one you think deserves a 3-White TV Memorial Day paint scheme of the race. Is it going to be the number 17 paint scheme, the Memorial Day paint scheme, or is it going to be the number 1 of Jason Stewart's paint scheme that you guys feel is going to win? But also mention some of your other favorite paint schemes out there. These are the two schemes that are in the running right now, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear what your favorite ones are right now. Jim, we know you can't really talk about it, but I want to know what your favorite paint scheme is as well.
Absolutely. Let us hear it in the chat if you got a favorite paint scheme. let us know, because again, there is so many good paint schemes to choose from tonight. Every car on this track really brought their A game, I would say, and we're kind of following along right now on the camera with the number 1. Now he's kind of switched down to pit road there with the 28. But the number 1 on those fresher tires, he has been absolutely booking it through the field. Currently,
sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Jim. No, another car.
The Menard's number 42, of course. You know what? Just because Carlos disagreed, I'm gonna agree. So we're just gonna be contrarian. But 23 car, that is Yenish. Of course, he is the one driver who is pretty much solidly in the 2-stop range, where he's only gonna have to stop one more time, and he is moving his way up the running order as everybody is kind of cycling through pit road. He's back on the lead lap now, so this is the first time since his pit stop that he's been on the lead lap. And he is currently scored. I'm sorry, he's not on the lead lap. He's the first car 1 lap down, but he is not far from unlapping himself either. I believe he is actually lapping a little bit quicker than the leader, so he will be unlapping himself shortly if things keep going this way. And he's moved all the way up to 14th on the running order. Remember, he was as far down as, I believe, 20th was the lowest he went during that pit sequence. So he's up 6 positions. He's going to continue to climb, and if this 2-stop strategy works out, then we're going to see him a lot further up the grid as this race continues. But again, up front, not too much changing with Scott Eckridge. He's still out to a massive 4-second lead, but things do change behind them because I mentioned Will Wursler was slowly catching Tyler Seville. Well, he's continuing to catch him. Now he is only 1 second left. He was about 3 seconds back last time we checked in. And it seems like he is continuing to close this gap. As last time for Will Wursler, 32-1. And for Tyler Seville, 32-4. So little by little, tenths after tenths, he is closing this gap and he's going to try to get up into P2. So it really seems like, Carlos, Will Wursler, one of the drivers who's kind of figured out the conservation aspect, because as the 11 is starting to fall back, these older tires, the 29, he's closing that gap.
And Will Wursler is no stranger to success in the ASRS. Hacksaw PCs, pardon me. I did not forget about Hacksaw. I just struggled with what to say after ASRS. I was going to say like Racing League, but that doesn't make sense. No, with the ASRS Hacksaw PCs Premier Cup Series, Will Wursler is a driver who can win, and there's been multiple seasons where he's won multiple races. Like I did mention earlier tonight, I do feel like he's kind of struggling just a little bit in 2021, but it's still young in the season. He can turn that around, and we saw Ray Alfalo win last night. He's been struggling a lot recently, so I think Charlotte's a perfect time for you to turn your season around, as he's got into second place. Look at that.
Absolutely. He's really booking it right now. I mean, his lap times, even compared to the leader, Will Wursler last time around, it was a 32.3. For the leader, Scott Eckridge, it was a 32.1. So he's about 2 tenths off the leader, but really, that's kind of to be expected. I mean, nobody has been on Eckridge's level so far tonight. I mean, he has continued to pull away. But actually, for a few laps there, as we look at the intervals, Wursler was a little bit quicker for a few laps. He kind of fell back there, but then this time, lap 112,
wow,
he was 2 tenths faster. So seems like that 29 is starting to come to life. I kind of thought he was falling back a bit, like maybe he wasn't quite up there with the 70, but no, the telemetry is proving me wrong. He is really on the move right now.
Seville got passed for second place, and because of that, well, not necessarily because of that, but after that, he's gone down pit road. So he's coming down pit road lap 114. Now, we did talk about the number 23 of Steve Yenish, who is a driver that we feel can complete that 2-stop strategy. Another driver who, wasn't as close as Steve Yenish, he hit it on lap 64, is John Eckert. Not too far behind Steve also, but 64, he's going to have to run a couple extra laps, but I also think he may be able to just stretch it enough. If Steve Yenish can make it, or I do believe Steve Yenish can make it, but I also think that John Eckert is a driver who could do it as well.
That would be interesting to have 2 cars able to pull off that 2-stop strategy. And shout out to Peter in the chat for saying RIP Speed Channel. That's in reference to the scoring pylon here at Charlotte Motor Speedway in iRacing. There is a Speed Channel logo on that pylon still, which I'm not even sure if it was there. I don't think it was when they scanned this track. It's just an old scoring pylon from the old Charlotte that they used. And it's kind of been, I guess you could say, a meme, as the kids would say within the iRacing community. A lot of people talking about that Speed Channel logo. I miss the Speed Channel. I'm sure a lot of viewers at home also miss it. I remember when I was younger, we would go to Watkins Glen and we would go to all the filmings of the speed shows, like whatever their midweek show was, and they'd have the audience in the back. That was always a great time. But back to the actual race, we kind of got our multicam pulled up, and of course we're focusing on Jenisch in that number 23 car, who again, he's one of possibly 2 cars, as Carlos mentioned, that can make this 2-stop strategy work. And again, he is continuing to work his way up the leaderboard right now, being scored in 9th. So he's crested the top 10, and now he really is on the lead lap. He is back on the lead lap in the top 10. So if this strategy works out, who knows? We might see a surprise top 5 or maybe even better for Steve Jenisch. But we're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out, how much time he has to sacrifice on these older tires. But it does look like Brian Yazik has made his way in and out of pit road, so he's already back out on track. Brian was running, I believe, in the top 10 for pitting. And with that lap, Steve Jenisch actually passed a handful more cars. He's up to P7 now, as everybody made their way down pit road. So, yep, there, P6 right there. So he is really working this strategy right now. I'm just curious if it can last, if he can hold this speed. But pit road getting as busy as it is, we have no words of any penalties or anything so far. But here's something interesting, Carlos. I just rolled over to the number 63 car, Johnny Avila, and he has a lot of rear end damage, at least from my perspective. That center of the bumper is caved in pretty much all the way to the fuel cell. Not sure how that happened, but that is, I think, the only car that I've really spoiled past that has a substantial amount of damage. 23, I think, has some passenger side door damage, maybe a little bit of a scrape, but nothing substantial. But 53 is really caved in. So maybe an incident entering pit road, maybe something going into the corner, who knows. But that might hold them back a little bit, Carlos, because you kind of talked about how fast this track is, how much grip they have. If your rear end is jacked up and your spoiler isn't really flush, you're going to lose some rear downforce. And this is a track where you need it, because everybody's going to be making their way around the corners almost wide open on fresh tires, and the downforce is a big part of that.
Pit road.
Maybe a bit of a disadvantage, but yes, the leader is making his way down pit road on lap 120. So he stayed out fairly long time there, about 58 laps. And he's got 80 laps to the end, so he's going to have to pit again. There's no way. Question is, he's kind of got a choice to make now, Carlos, because 80 laps is only 20, maybe 15 laps beyond what is possible.
Perfect.
So
split it in half.
He could split it in half. He could pit really early and get back on fresh tires as soon as possible, or he could stretch it out towards the end and see if maybe a caution comes out. He's kind of got a choice to make, and I think his strategy, being a little bit off timing with everybody else, kind of opens up more doors for him, which, could mean more opportunities, more chances to maintain this lead, or more risks.
Now, Jim Foose on the chat telling us that the 63 and the 18 got together very early on in the race, so that's a damage that we were taking a look at from the back of the 63. So I did mention last night, I did mention regarding last night of the esports race, of the Coke Series race. Also, at the same time happening was the ASRS Grand National Series, and they were running at Mid-Ohio last night. The race winner was Jordan Harnish. So we also want to give a shout out to Jordan Harnish for winning last night's developmental race in the Grand National Series. They split the weeks. So on 1 week it's trucks, and other weeks it's the Xfinity cars. So congratulations to Jordan Harnish on getting that win at Mid-Ohio. And Peter Short saying, I heard LPM did really well. So that's it's always nice to see drivers doing well. And, I don't really have a preferred team. I just like seeing everybody having a good time.
That's what it's all about. We we're competitive on these sims, and obviously everybody wants to go out and win. But for the most part, as long as everybody's having a good time, that's what it's all about. And I think most of these drivers tonight here in this race are having a good time because, again, I don't want to jinx it, but we've been caution free. Nobody with any substantial damage so far. Everybody's been able to just run their race. It's been very calm, very methodical. And if you're a driver, I think that's what you like. You don't want a bunch of chaos and unexpected wrenches being thrown into your plans. You don't want caution after caution. You want races like this. This is the exact kind of thing that you hope for going in. And I think everybody is just having a complete blast, especially with how fun this track is to drive. Maybe some drivers don't agree with me, but I love the way this track drives. I've said it before. I'll say it again. So this race is going to continue, and we're going to see exactly where everything shakes out. Update on the number 23 after pretty much everything has cycled out. Top 5. He's in P5, 18 seconds back from the leader. So the leader, Thomas George, I believe has yet to pit in that number 88 car. He's going to have to make his way down. And Johnny Avila, I believe, has not pitted either.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos.
No. Well,
yes.
Yes, he has. I apologize. Yeah, Johnny Avila went down pit road 109. So he has well more than 80 laps to make up. So he for sure has to pit a second time. So yeah, the only one who has yet to go down pit road a second time is the race leader right now, Thomas George. Who actually, wait a second. Hey. Wait.
What are we waiting for?
Oh, okay, there we go. Steve Yenish. I don't know why, but he's being shown that he's gone down pit road 2 times. I actually think that Steve Yenish may have been one of the 2 drivers that started the race in pit road, so that's why he's being shown 2 times. So yeah, Doug Mullins went down pit road lap 93. I do believe he did go down pit road 2 times, but yeah, it threw me off a little bit because it was showing me that Steve Yenish has gone down pit road 2 times, so that's what threw me off.
Absolutely, and right now, I think we're seeing the downside of this 2-stop strategy for Steve Yenish. We had just mentioned he was all the way up into P5, now dropping back again into P8, and that's exactly what's going to happen when you're on these older tires. I mean, you got to think he pitted on lap, I believe it was 68. So he has been on these tires for quite some time. His lap times have plummeted drastically. Last time around, it was a 32.674. Which is, compared to the current quote-unquote race leader once the 88 pits, the driver running second, but essentially running in the lead, that would be Johnny Avila. Last time around for him, it was a 31.6. So he's just about a second off pace on those older tires. Of course, once he does make his way down pit road for the second time, he'll have those fresh tires, but it's going to be a question of can he make up all that time on those tires. And that's the differential right there, folks. 1.2, 1.3, 1.2, 1.4. Evans just absolutely demolishing Yenish's lap times, and that's the difference for fresh tires versus old tires.
And that's not even that much fresher tires. Let me pull up Larch, and you can see Michael Larch's lap times compared to Steve Yenish. And okay, it's not that big of a difference, but it's still bigger. It got to 2 seconds.
Yeah, lap 128, he was 2 seconds faster. That is pretty crazy. I mean, Charlotte, we talked about how the lap times don't drop as much on older tires, but they still do drop noticeably. I mean, it's not like Auto Club where you might drop 3 seconds on your lap times, but you do drop about 1.6 to 2 seconds depending on how old the tires are and how fresh the other guys are. So it does affect you, and again, this is the downside to the strategy that the 23 is pulling. He's going to have to just deal with the older tires until he can come down pit road and safely make it to the end, at which point the advantage will be in his hand. He's going to have a faster car, going to have to see what he can do with it, but 88, Thomas George, still yet to make his way down pit road. He's really trying to stretch this out. But as I say that, Thomas George comes across the driver radio, says he's pitting this time by. So with the 88 making his way down pit road on lap 133, that is going to leave him about 67-ish laps to the end.
If that's
which
67-ish laps, and he can make it. But he's
yeah,
Thomas George is the driver, the other driver we're talking about, who went down pit road on lap 64. That's a lot of smoke. He went down pit road on lap 64. So I was told 67, 60, 66. They wanted to be like the last run, but Thomas George, if you're telling me he's only got 67, 68 laps to go, he can probably make it without pitting again. And he had the lead, and he held it for a while. He wasn't even threatened to be passed yet. So the way it's going, if Thomas George can make it the rest of the way, he may just very well be your race winner.
it definitely could play out that way. And I think you called it earlier, Carlos. As soon as we saw the 23 come down pit road as late as he did, and we realized how far they can go, I think some of these other guys might have realized, oh, I came down pit road a little too soon, because some of these drivers, like Scott Eckrich, are locked into that pre-stop strategy. I don't think there's any way that Eckrich makes it to the end from where he pitted. So maybe some drivers jumping the gun a little bit coming down pit road, and it's understandable. You don't really want to take too many risks. And of course, trying to stretch out your fuel and try to make this on one less stop than everybody else, that's quite a risk. It's a difficult thing to do. But now that we're seeing some of these drivers really go above and beyond in terms of how far they can stretch a run, I don't know. I think right now, Thomas George, the 23 car, ooh, 3 wide there
I'm
for a minute,
sorry.
huh?
Yeah, that was a Yevgenish, and I believe that's the 45 of John Eckert. They leaned into each other really heavily there. As I'm going to try to see if I can pull up a quick replay on that one, because I thought we were just about to have a first caution. I was taking a look at the at Steve, wondering why he hasn't gone down pit road yet, because it's time to go down pit road right now. At this point, you're just slowing yourself down for no reason. But let me see if I can pull up the replay. Here you go. I'm going to slow it down just a little, because I really swear I could have sworn that these drivers are going to run into each other there. As I'm trying to get this thing to change to the right camera angle. There we go. All right, here we go. I'm going to start playing it now. Slow motion just a little bit. Take a look at the top of your screen. Little net code. They didn't actually touch, but oh man, I thought that was going to be the first caution of the night. Sam Maxwell was getting closer. Just throwing away his checkbook right there.
That was some serious netcode. You could see the 04 machine just kind of get bounced down the track towards the apron, and it was or I'm sorry, not the 04. That was the 45.
45.
Yes, sorry about that. But yeah, the 45 got bounced down towards the infield, and he actually ended up dipping 2 tires onto the grass, which is another scary thing that sometimes happens here, because oh yeah, we do. Look at that. All right, so the number 11, Tyler Seville, trying to get around Johnny Avila, who, like you mentioned, Carlos, Johnny Avila, he was one of the early adopters to pit road for the second round of pit stops. He came down on lap 109. His tires probably feeling a little bit bad compared to Tyler Seville, who has closed this gap drastically now with a bold move to the outside. Again, the outside line not quite as good in 1 and 2 as it is in 3 and 4, so not quite able to make it stick. He's going to get a big run coming out, and it's the crossover down to the bottom, door to door into 3. Now 3 is where the high line is a little bit better, so we're going to see, can Avila defend? No, he cannot. He's going to drop back by about a car length, and that is going to put the number 11 firmly into the lead. And right now, I'm not sure there's too many drivers that are going to be able to. Well, never mind. I didn't even notice Will Worsler's in the picture here. He is right there in P2, well, battling for P2 with the number 63. And his lap times have been actually slightly better by about a couple tenths per lap than Tyler Seville, who's currently leading. So once this shakes out and everybody's done battling, we may see Will Worsler take the lead for the time being. Behind them, you've got the 88, who's a lap down in 17th. He's the first car a lap down. He's on fresher tires than all of these guys, but they're 2 wide in front of him. He has nowhere to go. He can't make this pass without going 3 wide, so he's just kind of patiently riding behind. And this is what you talked about earlier, Carlos. When you got those fresher tires, you hate to see situations like this where you know your car is faster, you have the run coming through the corner, but you just can't make the pass. So you're kind of wasting time on fresher tires, just letting off the throttle, rolling behind these guys. And now he's finally able to get around him, and now it looks like he's going to get around even the leader to unlap himself. So that is going to put him back on the lead lap, leaving the first car lap down to the Tim Knott in the number 41. But on your screen right there, we got a battle going on. That's the number 17 alongside the number 12. These guys have been duking it out for a good few laps here as we've been following them, and now they're finally getting it sorted out, it would seem. But that is the battle for, well, actually it wasn't for position. 17 is currently 2 laps down in 23rd, and the number 12, Jackson Van Wolfenberg, he's in P6, and he is on the lead lap. So, again, this is the kind of split that we see between cars that pitted early, pitted late. Cars that are a lap down might be a little bit more competitive, a little bit quicker. But now, here comes the number 1 car down pit road for more than likely the final time.
Yeah, he's going down pit road, and Jason Stewart, somebody that we usually always talk about being a driver to look out for because of his incredibly unique strategy. Last year in this very race, if I remember correctly, he was involved in an incident early in the race. It was missing a whole front bumper. I think he was also missing his hood. Well, because of his strategy, he was in prime condition to... he wasn't going to win the race because of his damage, but if he hadn't been involved in that incident, he was more than likely going to win that race because of his unique strategy. There's been multiple times where Jason Stewart has gotten the lead or been in a position to win a race because of just not doing what the leaders have done. So it's a little weird for me to see tonight Jason Stewart kind of following the strategy of the others. I was kind of expecting a little bit different from Jason, but it's always somebody to keep an eye out, especially if we have a late race caution. Just because he may not have the strategy for it right now doesn't mean that a strategy won't develop that might see him win this race. And last year when he was missing that front bumper hood, he didn't win, and I don't think he had a chance to win because of the damage, but he did lead a lot of laps with that off strategy. Something to point out is we did want to let you guys know that 308 TV has chosen its Memorial Day paint scheme of the race, and it was between the number 1 of Jason Stewart and the number 17 of Kevin Stone. And after Peter Short weighing in and a couple other people expressing interest, it has been determined that the 17 of Kevin Stone, who is in pit road right now, is your 308 TV Memorial Day paint scheme of the race winner.
Congrats to that number 17, of course, piloted by Kevin Stone. A fantastic paint scheme. Again, I love the stripes on the side of that. Very slick-looking car as he makes his way out of pit road. But things are starting to cycle out here as everybody's kind of making their way down for their final stop. Of course, a few of these drivers that don't have to come down again, that are on the 2-stop strategy, more than likely including number 88 now, who, again, we believe he could make it to the end with a little bit of saving. All that going on, and Will Worsler now starting to pull away a little bit. He's taking the lead for the time being. He's got a 0.3 of a second lead over the number 11. He's continuing to extend that lead every single lap, but back there in third, slowly catching up and currently running faster lap times than the leader, Scott Eckrich in that number 70, trying to claw his way back to the front. But we're about to take lap 150 out of 200. There'll be 51 laps to go at lap 150. Of course, you got to complete the last lap. But we haven't done this yet tonight. How about we take in the sights and sounds of Charlotte for the Charlotte World 300 with a Shano FX Overdrive.
Mics are hot.
And we are back at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the running of the Charlotte World 300 for the ASRS Hacksaw PC Series. I probably butchered that sponsor again. I apologize. Again, I'm no Peter Short. We're going to do a quick through the field for tonight. We haven't done that yet, and we are quickly approaching the end of this event. So we're going to take a look through our top 10, starting out with our current race leader, Will Worsler, in that number 29 machine out of New Johnsonville, Tennessee. He has slowly been climbing the ladder all night long. He was running fourth for a while, then he got up to third, then he got up to second, and eventually he was able to get around Tyler Seville for the first position. And he has been extending that lead ever since. So right now, as they run before any more pit stops or anything happens, he's pretty much securely in the lead, leading some laps and having a really great night for that number 29. Okay. So back to P2, Tyler Seville. We talked about him just a moment ago. He's led a lot of laps tonight. He's had a very solid short-run car. Seems like maybe the long-run speed seems to elude him, but regardless, he has been in the top three pretty much all night long. The only time we've seen him out of a podium position was during pit sequences, and other than that, he's been one of the dominant cars, and with the way that this all has been playing out, I think with the strategy that he's pulling, we're going to see him on the podium tonight as long as he keeps this momentum. Looking back to third, Scott Eckrich, the driver who dominated pretty much the entirety of the early portion of this race. He fell a little bit behind on strategy, dipping down onto pit road, I think before anybody else on the first sequence and fairly early on the second pit stop. So kind of locked himself into that three-stop strategy, lost a little bit of time on older tires. But despite that, he is still on rails right now, running P3 and actually closing the gap to Tyler Seville. So we're going to have a battle for second brewing very soon. We're going to have to see what Scott Eckrich has up his sleeve at the end of the race. Back into fourth, Johnny Avila in that number 63 car. He's another driver who's been having kind of a silently good day. He's been inside the top five pretty much since the last pit sequence had commenced. And even though he's got a little bit of damage to the rear end of that car, it doesn't seem to be holding him back any, as he has managed to stay within this top five. He's currently lapping a little bit quicker than the next car behind him, which is P number 5. All night long. That's the thing with his top five. They've been so solid, so consistent all night long that we really haven't seen much of a shakeup. But yeah, Brian Yazik out of Allenson, Missouri there. He has been really consistent. I said all the top five has been consistent, but Yazik in particular, his lap times, the way he's been driving this car, he's just been mad consistent all night long. And I think if he keeps it up, he's going to bring this thing home top five. Jackson Van Volkenberg, P6. He got a little bit off sequence, I think, with the second pit stop. But despite that, he is holding on to this top 10 position. And his lap times right now, interesting to note, are actually faster than pretty much every car ahead of him in the running order. So he is actually closing the gap to the top five. And you give him a few laps, he might be up there. Back in seventh, it is going to be Corey Silva in the 94 car in seventh. And this is a driver who we've talked a lot about him throughout the season, who's had some very solid races. As he actually made the overtake 4-6 there as we're talking about him. He's had a lot of solid races this year. It's rare to see him outside of the top 10, and he hasn't quite had winning pace tonight, but you can never complain about a top 10. And you can win championships on consistency alone. So Corey Silva with another good day so far. Looking a little bit further back to, well, seventh now, you've got Jeff Yenish in the number 89 car. He is currently making his way down pit road. So we're seeing the final set of stops really commence and get underway as pit road is kind of busy.
Yeah, we're going to put a stop to this.
But we're going to have to... Yeah, we're going to have to end this through the field a little bit early, but just to round out your top 10, for anybody wondering, it was Thomas George just inside the top 10 and Michael Larch. So with this all happening, Carlos, everybody's coming down pit road. What are you expecting to see in terms of running order? Where do you think some of these guys are going to shake out, like the number 23, who is on this two-stop strategy, maybe even the 88, who's also on that strategy?
I really think that if this goes green all the way, then we're going to be seeing the two strategy work. Honestly, I really don't see how staying out is going to, or sorry, how doing the three stop is going to really work out for them. I don't see it happening. I don't think that Janusz has a car to kind of win, because I think he's lost too much time. Possibly here for sure in top 5, but I just think Thomas George, he went down pit road with 67 laps to go. We've seen that number be easily hit, especially since Steve Janusz himself has gone extra laps. He got like almost 70, 72 laps. So I just don't see anybody else making it, or having a chance at winning the race. We know that Scott Eckridge is fast. You know, Will's fast, but just the fact that they committed to a two-stop race, and not only that, but the fact that they kind of like tried to do committed to a three-stop race, but they tried to do a two-stop race and then went down pit road way early, kind of tells me that they kind of kissed all their chances goodbye.
I would have to agree. I'm firmly in the two-stop camp. I think that is the strategy that's going to prevail. I think the 88 has a fantastic shot at it tonight. Not to give him the commentator's curse, but the laps are winding down. We're under 40 to go. We're at currently 37 to go, I believe. Actually, I'm looking at a car that's a few laps down. So no, we are actually at 36 to go. So laps are winding down. The two-stop strategy seems to be the one that is prevailing. I think, like you said, Carlos, I think the 23 might have lost a little bit too much time. He's kind of been at a disadvantage the whole night. Starting on pit road, if he were to get a few yellow flags, I think that would have been an issue that he could have overcame pretty early in the race. But we have gone 165 laps without a single yellow flag for him to get the field bunched up, to recover from that. And even though the two-stop strategy is helping him, and it's gained him a lot of positions, I'm not sure it's going to be enough to win the race. We'll just have to see. Of course,
oh my goodness!
Anything can happen. Oh boy.
3 wide there with a couple fresh tire guys, and the 23 of Janusz. Actually, surprisingly, he's only 8 seconds back of your now current race leader, Thomas George. But Tyler Seville and Johnny Avila, they went down pit road. On lap 160 and 159 respectively, and they're about 7 seconds behind Thomas George. So it's a bit weird, but Tyler Seville and Johnny Avila, them going down pit road really early, kind of like it's making it's gonna make us look bad, because I think that now it's gonna be Tyler Seville or Johnny Avila, and they're battling side by side for second. They're still well, not still side by side, pardon me, it's the number 24 of Adam Young, but Tyler Seville and Johnny Avila, they are a lot closer to Thomas George than I expected. As a matter of fact, since I started talking, they've gained like 2 seconds. So we may have just been called out for being incredibly wrong. Look at those lap times.
That is a huge difference. It seems like the three-stop strategy, if they timed it right, is really prevailing. And some of these drivers, I think, timed it better than others in terms of how they split up their tire usage and how long their stints were. But Seville, of course, he timed it right, it would seem, because those lap times don't lie. I mean, 1.7, 1.6, 1.6, just continuing to eat away at this gap. And if we don't get a yellow flag, if everything shakes out sort of naturally here, that is going to be, I think, like you said, that's going to be the play, which is interesting, because I really thought the two-stop was going to be the move to make. I mean, I saw the 88 and how much ground he was making up, and whoa, my goodness, that was a moment for Will Worsler. Oh, he was on the outside lane, 3 wide, nowhere to go, completely sideways, and somehow Will Wurzler was able to get that thing wrangled back up, pointed the right direction, and he didn't even get a scratch. So not every day you can say that you were sideways 3 wide at Charlotte and didn't accrue any damage. A fantastic drive by Will Wurzler as he is continuing to apply pressure to a lapped, no, not a lapped car. I'm sorry, that is a lead lap car, the number 2, Greg Evans, who...
Oh, pit road! Thomas George!
Oh, no! Wow, okay. That's
I'm
interesting.
so confused.
I'm a little baffled. He could have made it to the end. I'm certain of that. That I know. But maybe he's thinking he was just giving up too much time on these old tires. He thinks he can... I mean, we're at 30 to go right now. So maybe he thinks 30 laps is enough to make up the time on fresher tires. I don't agree.
I'm just
I
so
think
confused.
he needs more time than that. Yeah,
because he's down to 18th right now. And I'm sure he can maybe
contact.
gain.
Yeah,
Oh,
wrecking!
No caution out yet.
Wow, I don't know how they gathered that up. That was synchronized spinning.
I need to find out where that happened. I was not looking at that.
That was coming out of turn 4, towards the pit road entry. It was the number 18 machine, Doug Mullins, getting into the number 12, Jackson Van Valkenburg. They came out of the corner, and I'm not sure if Van Valkenburg checked up a little bit or if the car ahead of him checked up and he slowed down for him. But one way or another, these two drivers got together. They were completely sideways, and I thought for sure they were spinning into the infield or worse. But somehow they both gathered it up. Everybody that was behind them was able to either check up in time or straight up avoid them on track. And we were able to narrowly avoid the first yellow flag of the night, as you can see the replay playing out on screen right there. And just a very close call, very scary moment for anybody who is in the running to maybe make some money from this $80 caution-free jackpot. Yeah, that's definitely not good news for the
sure.
Yeah, they're definitely out of it.
At a minimum, that's an X.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
That's more than an X. I'd say that's a solid 4X right there.
If not 4X, that's 2X for contact and loss of control. Well, no, contact would be 4X. And loss of control is 1X, but that's enough for 4X. Oh man, that was scary. I was just too baffled by seeing the 88 go down Pear Road. I feel like I'm missing something if I'm got some wrong telemetry or something. But I'm so confused. In the meantime, though, Tyler Seville is about 2 seconds ahead of Johnny Avila with Will Wurzler in third, 5.5 seconds back. Fourth is Scott Eckrich, 7.3 seconds back. Corey Silva, 8 seconds back. And Greg Evans, 10 seconds back. Actually, Greg Evans and Brian Yosik are essentially battling for position.
And what a comeback it's been for Evans in that number 2 machine. He started the race running towards the back of the pack. Of course, he had the radio communication issues where people could hear him, but he could not hear the race officials. He could not hear the other drivers. So he spent the early portion of this race riding in the back, playing it safe, where he wouldn't put anybody in any threat with his lack of communication. I'm not sure if he got it figured out, and now he's just kind of flipped the switch and he's gotten up there, but running solidly in the top 10 after starting so far back. You can't complain about that, because you got to think, some of these drivers that started further back that, you know, kind of had issues early on, they have not overcome those issues because it's been green flag. They've not had the opportunity to overcome those issues. So to see that number 2 machine all the way up into, well, now he's P7, he was P6, and now he's in 7th. It's pretty impressive, and it's been a good recovery. If you were to get a caution as well, I mean, he's in the running. The way this track works, if we were to get a yellow flag at any point in these last 22 laps, or 23 laps that are remaining, I think anybody in the top 10 is in it to win it. So it's going to be interesting to see that play out. But of course, up front, it's still going to be Tyler Seville and Johnny Avila about 2 seconds apart. Will Wurzler 4 seconds back from the leader. A lot of separation up front as we look at our 3-wide TV multicam on the top right. That's the 69 machine. He had a bit of a side-by-side battle. Now he's clear, and right there, I believe that is the number 63. That is going to be Johnny Avila, who's currently running P2. So he's running second place, bottom left. That's the number 11, Tyler Seville. So we're kind of taking a look at both of our leaders there. And now that the camera's focused on that 18, I guess I can get back around to what I was going to say. I kind of got derailed there. I derailed myself. He's got a lot of damage to that rear end, and I think it is definitely hindering his lap times. I noticed as soon as he took that damage, he had dropped several tenths from that. And it's interesting to see because it's very similar damage to what Avila has, but as we all know, iRacing works in mysterious ways, and sometimes damage affects you, sometimes it kind of lets you get away with it, but in the case of Doug Mullins in that 18, his lap times did deteriorate quite a bit. He's running 32 O's, and the car ahead of him, Jordan Carnish, and the number 27 car, he's running at 32.1, so actually pretty much on par with the car ahead, but as for the cars ahead of them, Van Volkenberg with a 30.8, Jeff Yenish with a 31.7, definitely a little off pace from that damage. And it's unfortunate, when you get that damage that slows you down, it holds you up, and you don't get the yellow flags that give you the opportunity to come down pit road and get it fixed. It can be really frustrating to continue to turn laps with a wounded horse.
Very well said. Pardon me, I have a little bit of a barking dog right now, but through ATB, we love dogs. And, well, Peter's not here, but we still need to make up for the fact that we're going to be missing our weekly dog barking sounds. So don't worry. Belle's here making sure... okay, that's enough. Can you take over?
Absolutely. I was kind of in the mid-bite of a chip, but, we're gonna work through it. On your screen right now, I got a bit of a side-by-side battle going on. I believe that is Will Wursler at the head of that battle, trying to navigate some traffic there. Richard Fletcher in at 43, but Johnny Avila is for position. The number 63 is currently running at third, so Wursler was able to take over P2, and let's take a look at lap times versus the leaders. So for Will Wursler, it was a 31.6 last time around. And for Tyler Seville, at number 11, it's a 31.8. So actually, Will Wursler, again, is coming to life late into this run. You can see lap after lap, he's just clicking off those tenths. And we've seen this numerous times from the 29. It seems like every run, it's late into the game that car comes to life. And he did get all the way up to the lead in the last stint, and he was able to hold that lead until the pit sequence. So now that we know the three-stop strategy is more viable than we had given it credit for, I wouldn't count Will Wursler out. If he continues to close in on the leader, he's only got about a 2.4 second deficit. We've got 16 laps to go. He'd have to continue closing in at the rate he's closing in at, but he's going to get there. He will get there before the end of the race at this rate. Question is, can he make the pass? Getting to somebody, that's one thing. Making the pass, that is another. But with the speed that he has, that pace, I mean, look at that, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2. I mean, when you're half a second a lap faster, it makes it a whole lot easier to make an overtake. So I think this is about to be a show here, Carlos.
I'm not... Okay, well, here's the thing. Some people may be wondering, oh, Will Wursler from Will Wursler Racing must be, it must be the guy in charge. Well, Tyler Seville kind of give up the position and let his boss win, but no. Will's not the boss, it's Nicky. Nicky's the boss of Will Wursler Racing. So he doesn't have to worry about the fact that I guess anybody, but if anything, we all know that Nicky's favorite driver is Will. Is Tyler, I should say. Have you seen the man? The guy's future is so bright. He needs to wear shades every day, all day, every day. Look at his profile picture. He's wearing shades. That man's future is so bright, he has to wear shades even indoors. So Tyler Seville, he's not going to be giving up any spots to anybody, let alone Will Wursler of Will Wursler Racing. Will Wursler will need to do this himself. As a matter of fact, Will's such a chaser. He recently changed his profile picture to have sunglasses to copy Tyler. He's running fast now, but that's not I don't think that's enough to be able to get the lead, because you need to wear the shades. You also got to rock it. All right? Not half his face. A third of his face is missing. That's not cool. That's cool.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're having a profile picture competition, I think Tyler Seville takes it any day. Was he on a boat in that picture? I mean, if he is, I didn't get a good look at it, but if he is, I think that just adds to the cool factor. Definitely in front of something. I don't know what he's in front of, but yeah, I tell you what. he wins the profile picture competition. Will Worsler, the cropping is just off a little bit. It's a little off center, a little bit too close. We can't see the full beard. I feel like if we could see the full beard, that would up the cool factor by about 2 points. But I don't know. I think at some point we need to have an official ranking of our driver profiles. In the meantime, while we're kind of bad mouthing Will Worsler's profile picture, he doesn't care because he is continuing to run down the leader as we have 11 laps to go. 1.7 seconds is the difference, Carlos. It is starting to equalize. You can see there were 2 out of the last 3 laps where it was actually Seville that was faster, and Worsler, when he was faster, was only about 500th of a second on one of those laps. So tires starting to equalize, maybe not closing in as quick. It's going to be a tall order, I think, to get there with the way that his tires are starting to fall off.
And with 10 laps to go, Will Worsler slowly improving, but the speed is kind of gone. Right now, it's a gap of 1.5 seconds to your race leader, who just disappeared. He blinked out. No, he's there. I guess it must have been my eyes playing tricks. I could have sworn that he blinked out for like for a couple seconds there. But right now, it's this lap is gonna be faster for sure. But he's just slowing too much. I think. I don't think he's gaining enough time for this. Okay, well that one was a good one. That's about a tenth. I'm not sure if that's a 109 or 189. It's a 189. So that's almost 0.2 of a second. With 9 laps to go, we may have something, but I just think it's not enough time for Will Worsler.
It's definitely not much time. That's for sure. If he's going to make something happen, he cannot make any mistakes. And what's worse news for Will Worsler is that, I say that 3 times fast, by the way, worse news for Will Worsler. Tyler Seville doesn't really have any traffic in front of him. There we go. He lost a little bit of time that lap. So Tyler Seville picking up the pace a little bit with only a few laps to go. I think if Will could just get a little bit closer, he'd be within drafting range, and that would make a huge difference, because coming down those straightaways, that would be pretty much a free 10th or 2, as that draft just helps so much. But he's just outside that draft range. I would say it starts at about 1.1 seconds, and he's at about 1.3 as they cross the line with 7 to go. He might get there. I think if he gets the draft, he might get there, but it's not going to be soon enough to have ample opportunities to make the pass. That's the thing. So either way, it's a good night for Will Worsler Racing. But even if you're the team owner and you see your driver up there starting to drive away with it and maybe grabbing it, you still want to win the race for yourself. We're all competitors out here, so he's going to continue to try and make his move. But really, other than those 2, I mean, there's really not much competition behind him. You got Johnny Avila, who is 4 seconds back from the leader. Scott Eckrich, who is 7 seconds back, as well as Brian Nozick, who's about 7.3. And so a lot of separation within this top 10, but the 2 leaders, the closest to one another, as they round 3 and 4, running very similar lines, both of them hugging the bottom. That's definitely the place you want to be. And we do have a lapped car coming up on the leader. Tyler Seville closing in on the 04 machine on Mark Myers. When he gets to him, that might hold him up a little bit. That's definitely what Will Worsler wants to see, as we have 5 to go, but I'm not sure it matters too much, because 1.2 seconds, 5 seconds to go, or 5 laps to go, I apologize. I don't know, Carlos, I think it's too big of a gap. We're going to have to see.
It's kind of what you mentioned. We need to see if he can make anything work with the draft. I'm not seeing it. The 18, that's a good lap for Worsler, and it's under a second at this point. But I don't know. I really don't think it's got, he's there enough. We saw on lap 194. You see right there that Seville was almost a tenth faster. Seville wasn't dealing with lap traffic, neither was Will Worsler. That was just Seville outpacing Worsler by himself. So Will Worsler, if he's making mistakes or something, whatever happened that lap, that did not help him at all. As he's now 0.8 of a second behind your race leader. It's a close one for sure, but right now there's a lap there's a lap car in between them. This could either help Will or this could hurt him badly. These last couple laps have been really good for Will, but next time by it's gonna be 2 to go, and he's not there right now. It's not looking good for him.
No, at this point, I think it would take a bobble by Tyler Seville. I don't think we're going to see that. Seville has been very consistent all night long. He's had a fantastic drive. And, oh, Will Worsler in a big slide going into turn 1. You can tell how hard he's pushing that car, trying to close the gap. Incredible send into turn 1, but unfortunately the car just not sticking. It's got to be frustrating for Worsler. I mean, he just got within drafting distance. You could see him closing in a little bit on that backstretch. And if he had maybe 5 or 10 more laps, maybe, but right now they're crossing the line for the white flag. We're on the final lap of this event, and the difference is 0.7 seconds. So another 10th gain by Worsler, but not quite going to be enough so far, all the way down to that blue line. Tyler Seville putting 2 tires on it, in fact, as they make their way down the back stretch. Will Worsler going to make a deep send into 3 and 4, but just nowhere near close enough. And it looks like it's going to be the number 11, Tyler Seville, bringing home the win after 200 grueling laps for the Charlotte World 300.
Whip out that checkbook, Sam.
And yeah, caution free. We actually did it, Carlos.
How about that?
Everybody crossing the line to complete their runs. And of course, there is the team owner and driver side by side. A little bit of a congratulatory move there as they pace around the track. And as everybody works their way,
1-2 tonight. Last week's winner finishing 5th, who we all kind of expected him to really win tonight's race, considering the fact that Chevy was underpowered. But right now, Chevy has six vehicles in the top 10. And the last time we did a top 10 counter, Toyota was running 17th. That's the highest finish that they had, or the highest finishing position, or the highest driver they had at the time. Toyota got 2 drivers in the top 10, Jeff Janisch and Steve Janisch. Both of those drivers finished 8th and 9th. Ford got 2 drivers. That's Brian Yazik and Woody Mahan, who finished 4th and 10th.
And it was an impressive rally from everybody in the top 10 to end up where they ended up. Of course, this is one of the more difficult races of the year, being the longest race of the season. And there you can see the race winner burning it down alongside his team owner, Will Worsler. And he's got a lot to celebrate. I think this is one of those races where, like you said, Carlos, we were expecting that number 70 to, if not win it, be right up there battling for the win. And then at another point, we saw the 88 with his strategy, and we thought maybe he was going to be able to pull something out there. Tyler Seville, he was running top 5 all night long, and we knew he was good, but I don't think we ever had him pegged as the sure winner. You know, he pulled the strategy out just right, though. He had a fantastic drive at the end, and ultimately, his team owner, Will Worsler, just ran out of time, so he was able to outpace him as long as he needed to and bring home a fantastic win for Will Worsler Racing.
Go ahead and take a look at the finishing results before we go on and interview some of these drivers. As we go ahead and pull it all up right now. Your finishing results for tonight. As I'll go ahead and let Andre take over here.
So obviously your race winner, Tyler Seville, alongside second place Will Worsler. It's a WWR 1-2. Impressive showing by the team. Absolutely incredible drive by both of those guys. Johnny Avila battling a damaged race car all the way up to P3 with an impressive podium. Brian Yazik finally breaking out of that P5 right at the very end to finish 4th. Scott Eckrich, he tried a strategy, didn't quite play out. He's going to wind up 5th after dominating most of the night. Corey Silva behind him in 6th. Greg Evans 7th. Jeff Janisch 8th. Steve Janisch 9th. The brothers finishing it right alongside one another. Woody Mahan 10th is going to round out your top 10. Behind them, you've got Michael Larch, Thomas George, who came down pit road maybe a little bit prematurely. We're still not entirely sure what the strategy call was there, but it definitely cost him some positions, and he brings it home at P12. 13th, Adam Jersky, Alan Young in 14th, Jordan Harnish, Doug Mullins, Michael Krobach, Jackson Van Volkenberg, after some late race contact with the number 18 car, is going to bring it home A disappointing 18th. He was running top 10 most of the night, and that contact kind of sealed the deal for him. Past Van Valkenburg, you've got John Eckert in 19th, and rounding out your top 20, it's going to be Tim Knott in the number 41. Jason Stewart, 21st. Forced, that's not a word. You got Grant Brown, 22nd, Troy Haight, 23rd, Kevin Stone, 24th, Mark Myers, 25th, and Richard Fletcher, the final car that started the race, to finish 26th. And of course, Clarence Bonner failed to start tonight's event. His team packed it up, and he's going to bring it home P27. Going to do that. So now we're going to go ahead and hop into some interviews with our top 3 finishers. We're going to start with P3, Johnny Avila. Johnny Avila, you got a copy?
I hear you.
Johnny, it was a fantastic run tonight. I got to say, when I saw the rear end damage on your car, I thought, man, that's going to hold him up. That's going to be tough to battle through all night long. But you were really consistent all night long. You played the strategy just right. And ultimately, despite the damage, you brought it up to a podium. How was the car out there tonight?
It was okay with the damage. The thing didn't turn right, so I had to drive a little bit harder than I wanted to. Kind of burned up my tires, but for the most part, it was driving okay.
Absolutely. So the strategy played a big part tonight. We saw some drivers take a 2-stop strategy, some drivers took a 3-stop, and even among those who took the same strategy, such as a lot of the field taking 3 stops, a lot of drivers came in at different times. Some of them came in 20 laps sooner than the next. What was kind of your philosophy on strategy tonight, and how much importance did you place on tire wear?
On the first run, I stayed out long, and I saw Tyler. He had pitted shorter earlier than me, and I wasn't able to make up the distance. So on the next pit stop, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try short pitting a bit, see if I can gain some track position back and like battle those guys. Because I think it was after 30 or so laps, the tires kind of leveled off. So I was hoping I could get myself in position to where the tires leveled off, and then I could kind of battle them.
Absolutely. Again, congratulations on your podium finish. To finish top 3 with that damage, and you said that it really affected your handling. That's really, really impressive. Before we let you go, Johnny, anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
I just want to continue to shout out everybody that puts this league together, you guys in the booth. Also, everybody running these paint schemes, like, there's some really nice ones out there today. It was nice to see a different scheme out there today.
Absolutely, some gorgeous schemes out there. We talked a lot about that on the broadcast. So anyways, thanks for your time, Johnny. Again, congratulations on your podium finish, and how about you go celebrate?
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
You too. That was 3rd place finisher, Johnny Avila. Now we're going to talk to our runner-up, Will Worsler. You got a copy? You got a copy, Will? Will Worsler, this is Under Grambush up in the 3-Wide TV booth. You got a copy, bud?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, Will, it was a great run all night long. We noticed that you had a lot of long run speed all night long. It seemed like after every stint, it was always late into the run that you came to life, and you were one of the fastest cars in those long runs. You were able to take the lead that way in the second stint there after your second stop, but at the end of the race, it ultimately came down to you trying to run down your own driver for your own team in that number 11. And boy, that was a nail biter. We were watching you up in the booth, and you were just clicking off those tenths little by little, but ultimately just ran out of time. What were those last few laps like? How hard were you pushing that car?
Well, the last 10 laps, maybe even 11, I was going about as hard as I could go. I had used up, I'd used up more than I wanted to the first part of the stint in traffic. And I was counting on, having 5 laps or so fresher tires, whatever it was, than Tyler, making the difference. By the time I caught him, like it had the stint before, I had caught him and pulled away. And I realized, that even though I was a little faster, that if I caught him, that I probably wouldn't be able to do anything with him. It's so hard to get around somebody. So, but he's a tough cat to beat anyway. He's faster than me on short and long run every week in practice, and it was no different this week. But somehow I got into practice before the race started, and something kind of clicked. I found a little bit extra speed. I didn't think it was going to be any big deal, but it enabled me to be able to run up front some. It was nice to be back up front. I haven't really run up front much this year at all, had any success at all. and finally found some speed, and it was really fun tonight.
It definitely looked fun. Again, you had a phenomenal run all night long. One of the things that we were talking about the most all night long was just how important strategy was. With this being one of the longest, well, actually the longest race of the season, the fuel mileage and how you split up your stints with the tire wear was probably more important tonight than any other time so far this season. What was your philosophy with how you split up your stints, and how important to you was the tire wear?
The tire wear, I knew from practice this week was going to be a big deal. As far as philosophy, I'm not going to lie. I went into this week with no philosophy. I didn't do it as nearly as I probably did half the practicing that I usually do in a given week, and I didn't have a pit strategy. I didn't have nothing, man, and it felt like going a little longer was going to help. I probably went too long on that last stint and let Tyler get a little bit too much ahead of me. I probably should have pitted probably 2 laps sooner than I did, but it is what it is. You know, he's one of the best at managing tires and one of the fastest guys in the league. So I don't feel bad about it. It's good to have WWR have a 1-2 finish. Absolutely.
It was a great run by your team, and you can't complain about going into a race with really no real pit strategy in mind and still come out with a podium finish. So congratulations on that, Will. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, I mean, I need to thank my wife, Jerry Nicole Worsler, also known in some circles as NWR, and I need to thank some of my buddies. I need to thank Craig Stykes. He watches my races and gives me pointers. He knows how to drive. So, got to thank my sponsors, High Flow and Custom Paints and Diecast. Jordan Berry, he's been great this year. Finally getting the chance to give him a shout out here, but got to thank my teammates, man. I got the best teammates in the league. We push each other. We do everything we can to help each other in practice. It's paid off, you know, in the previous years. We haven't ran like we wanted to this year, but I mean, it's starting to get a little better. And so, you know, that it really pays off to have a team and guys like we do on the team. I've also got to thank you guys. 3 Wide Draw. You know, every time I turn on a 3 Wide race, it's always great stuff. So you guys are the best.
We appreciate it, and again, congratulations on not only your podium finish, but your team 1-2. That is a great accomplishment, and we're hoping you carry that momentum forward. You definitely keep your head up after that one. That was something to be proud of, and hopefully going into next week, you guys can carry this forward. Thanks for your time, Will.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, that was your runner-up finisher, Will Worsler. Now we're going to bring up our race winner, Tyler Seville. You got a copy?
Sure do.
Tyler, you ran, well, pretty much as close to a perfect race as you can run. You played the strategy right. You never made any bobbles. You were just consistent all night long, running in and around the top 3. And then it comes down to the end of the race, and it's you trying to outpace your team owner as he slowly kind of caught up little by little, but he just got caught short, didn't have the laps to do it. What was it like those last few laps trying to fend off the team owner?
I expected him to catch me because that run before he had caught me and passed me. And I knew short pitting before him was pretty much going to be my only shot. And then when I was able to get past Avila there on fresh tires, I was just trying to run out the clock. Thankfully, turns 3 and 4 had been my strong point throughout the night. So it was definitely stressful. I was wondering how we were going to be able to battle if he caught me because I was fully expecting him to with his pace he had tonight. But I'm thrilled that I was able to hang on for the win.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking to Will there a little bit before we got to you, and he talked about how when he went into this race, he didn't really have much of philosophy when it came to pit sequences and pit strategy. He just kind of came in, felt out how the tires felt, and kind of played it by ear. And with how important strategy was tonight, I mean, with the race being as long as it was, the fuel mileage and the tire wear was kind of harder to calculate and harder to deal with than any other race, really. What was your philosophy coming into tonight? Was it kind of a similar situation where you played it by ear, or did you have kind of a set strategy coming in that you wanted to stick to?
I had a set strategy going out. I originally thought like pitting like every 55 laps because I knew you could go 60 to 65 on a tank of fuel. But I wanted to see, I tried to get as close to that as I could. But when I noticed that I was falling back from Eckrich there on that first run there towards the end, I think I pitted a couple laps later or before my mark. And then when I noticed that how long it took those fresh tires to catch up. They eventually did, but then I started working some math in my head there and was wondering, like, well, how early could I pit on that final stretch to potentially hold all of them off? So yeah, so we have a basic idea of when we want to pit, but with this series you have to be able to adapt pretty easily, especially when it goes caution free like this.
Absolutely, and that brings me to another point. How much did this going caution free sort of change the way that you approached it? Did you kind of have to start maybe babying the car a little bit more, taking care of the equipment, knowing that if you were to make a mistake or if you burned up your stuff, you weren't quite going to be able to rely on a caution to bunch up the field?
Right, that's exactly right. I always try to be more conservative than aggressive in general on green flag runs, just because I know how much scraping the wall can tear up your car. But then then it turns into, well, then you're only racing 3 or 4 cars because you have a big enough gap on everybody else. And it ended up just being who was going to pit first. So it definitely threw a wrench into everything, but I have a pretty good track record when it comes to these completely green flag races. So hopefully we get more of them.
Absolutely. Well, again, congratulations on the win, Tyler. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, I have to shout out Arch Telecom on my car, and Jordan Berry at Custom Paints and Diecast. This is an awesome paint scheme. Then I have to thank all of my teammates, Will, Doug, Richard tonight. AJ missed the race, so I'm glad he was watching on TV. But big shout out to Will, because he needed this race. He's had a rough start to the year, and it showed what he's capable of.
Indeed, it did. It showed what the whole team's capable of. 1-2, you can never complain about that. You guys had a great showing tonight. Again, Tyler, congratulations on the win, and hopefully you guys carry that momentum into next week.
Right, thank you.
And that was your race winner, Tyler Seville. And with the interviews wrapped up, I think that's going to do it for our post-race coverage of the Charlotte World 300 for the ASRS Hacksaw PC Premier Cup Series. I think I got it right that time. We want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I know, again, it was a longer race, the longest race of the season, so getting a little bit late on the East Coast especially. So for those of you who stuck around all night long, we thank you, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's coverage of the race. I'm Andre Grambush for 3Wide TV. Again, I'm joined by Carlos Acosta in the booth and producing, again, the ever-impressive multitasking. I don't know how he does it. There's no way on God's green earth I could do that. So shout out to Carlos for everything that he does to bring you guys this footage. And good night, everybody.